God of War 2018 is a widely popular, critically acclaimed game from an equally acclaimed series. This franchise became an enormous powerhouse on PlayStation consoles, elevating its protagonist, Kratos, to the status of an icon, not only for Sony's audiences but also for the whole gaming industry. Gamers know who God of War is, and it's not Ares. 2018's entry in the franchise represents a soft reboot, the start of a new saga of Kratos' adventures, a brave one at that, changing multiple well-established fundamentals of the series, showing Kratos as an older, grizzled veteran, defeated by his past but also giving him that one crucial glimpse of hope, his son, Atreus, the boy.
Here. Boy. Read it, boy.
Yes, Kratos becomes a father once again, which introduces a slew of new narrative themes as well as gameplay mechanics. And this is precisely why the game is so important to me. You see, last year I became a father, and now I have my own boy. Video games are my passion, and I was always an advocate for treating the medium as an art form, capable of conveying fascinating, deep messages. So it's a perfect opportunity to put my money where my mouth is, right? Taking care of your offspring is a wonderful, fulfilling thing. It's also a busy work. Raising a child comes with numerous challenges, and that's what I'm looking for in God of War. What does it say about father-son relations? Does it convey a lesson or a message for parents?
Boy.
Don't you sigh at me. Thankfully, in 2022, Sony released the PC port of the game, which made it possible for a hardened PC veteran like me to finally experience this fantastic journey. Obviously, since 2018, a lot has been said about the title. I choose not to watch any reviews or video essays about the game to avoid spoilers. I also don't want to get influenced by opinions of others, which is true for all of the games that I reviewed since I started the channel. The late review is a format in which I thoroughly analyze games, going deep into the gameplay mechanics and decision making behind implementing certain in-game systems. I'm looking for artistry, creativity, bold new ideas. And it takes time. My videos are long, not because I persistently try to make them bloated. It takes an enormous amount of time and effort to make video games. I believe it's only fair to examine each project with utmost care. I use timestamps in my videos, treat them like chapters in a book. This way you can skip to the topics which hold interest to you, but I highly encourage you to watch the whole thing. The first half of the video is going to be light on spoilers. I want to discuss the premise of the story, properly introduce the main duo and delve into their relationship. Then analyze the gameplay aspects of the title, presentation, exploration, level design, combat and progression. The second half of the video is dedicated to thorough chronological analysis of the plot. There will be a spoiler warning appearing both in the footage as well as on the timestamp. After that, I will discuss players' reception of the game by looking at Steam reviews. I'm kind of a completionist, so achievements will also get their own chapter. Okay, that's all. This is the late review, God of War. Awesome looking graphics, come on.
What have you done? Why did you do that?
Whoa, calm down. Let's start with some credentials. This review is based on 47 hours of gameplay. In that time I have finished a playthrough on Give Me Challenge difficulty. I have also fully explored the game's world, getting 100% completion for every zone. Talking about completion, I have also acquired 100% achievement completion. This is a review of PC version of the game released in 2022. Still, it mostly enhances graphics, so I'm going to approach it as a 2018 title, which is when God of War was originally released for PlayStation. God of War is Sony's flagship franchise. Games from this series were PlayStation exclusives. And I was always a PC gamer. Therefore, I had never experienced any of the previous God of Wars. I had a brief idea of the plot and what the games were about. I'm not ignorant, but I had never played any of those games. So I decided to watch a couple of story recap videos on YouTube before starting the game. After finishing my adventure, I also watched the absolute great piece of media called Raising Kratos, produced by Sony. I highly recommend it. Links to the videos are in the description. So, with all that being said, let's look at Kratos' past. The God of War series spawned numerous highly acclaimed games, each intricately weaving its narrative to enrich the lore and mythos of this world. Set in ancient Greece, the games tell the story of Kratos, a former Spartan warrior who got pulled into godly affairs of Olympus, relentlessly used, betrayed, fueled by blinding rage and unbridled desire for vengeance. Kratos' story is one heartbreaking Greek tragedy. First God of War shined with its brutal, gory, yet incredibly satisfying gameplay. Developers incorporated seamless, violent, quick-time events as a way of viciously executing enemies. It added a little bit of control for players who wanted to maul their enemies to death. For years, the excessive, edgy brutality became the hallmark of the franchise. Hell, they even made QTE sex scenes. Hopefully, Atreus won't get to know about that part. As time progressed and new entries in God of War series were released, the edgy violence mixed with QTE started to become stale. The audience slowly got bored with the formula. But what was the tragedy of Kratos? What led to his downfall? This story begins, as many Greek myths do, with Zeus. Zeus was the son of the Titan Kronos. Having learned about the prophecy predicting the death of Kronos at the hand of his child, the Titan decided to eat his offspring. Zeus was the only one to survive. He grew up in hiding, and when the time was right, he fulfilled the prophecy, killing his father. This way, the Age of Titans ended and the Age of Greek gods began. Unfortunately for Zeus, another prophecy said that he will die from the hands of a marked warrior. Consumed by fear, he ordered Ares and Athena to scour the world, getting rid of any person bearing the aforementioned marks. This is when gods and Kratos crossed paths for the first time. Ares found a Spartan boy with characteristic red birthmarks. But it was not Kratos, it was his brother, Deimos. Ares took Deimos away, leaving Kratos behind, alone and vulnerable. As a way of honoring his presumably dead brother, Kratos tattooed a copy of his brother's birthmarks onto himself. In the following years, Kratos rose through the ranks of the Spartan war machine, earning the title of the captain. Against the will of his wife and daughter, he led the Spartan army through numerous bloody conquests, amassing victory after victory, hungering for power and glory. This insatiable hunger finally led Kratos to his downfall. After losing a battle to the barbarian horde, his unit decimated, him defeated, waiting for execution, Kratos made a deal with Ares. He pledged his services to the God of War for sparing his life, a deal which Ares gladly took. He bestowed a great might upon the Spartan warrior and gifted him the Blades of Chaos, the iconic weapons of the franchise, as well as an eternal symbol of Kratos' servitude to the God of War. From that time onward, Kratos was bound by his oath to do Ares' bidding, thus starting yet another bloody conquest, this time in the name of God of War. I'm simplifying the story a little bit, as my goal is not to recap the whole narrative, but instead look for those crucial moments that shaped 2018's Kratos. None of them more important than this one. Ares, jealous of Zeus' favoritism towards Athena, ordered Kratos to destroy Athena's temple. Mad with bloodlust, Kratos ransacked the temple, killing everyone inside, only to discover that in his blind rage he killed his own wife and daughter. It was a trick, a ploy devised by Ares to viciously sever the last remnants of Kratos' humanity, eliminate any obstacle so that the Spartan can become the true vessel for God's commands. Kratos was inhuman in his cruelty, getting easily overtaken by rage, wrath, and sheer brutality. He was physically the strongest in his bloodlust-fueled blind rage. Unfortunately, it was also when he was the most vulnerable. Ares used that. For his unspeakable act of terror, Kratos was cursed, so that the ashes of his family were forever bound to his skin, making it Snow White. An eternal reminder of his downfall, which earned him a new title, the Ghost of Sparta. There's this great quote from Raising Kratos documentary. Kratos' conquest is being compared to a man who loses himself in his work. A man who as a result loses his family. Which is such a great analogy to the struggles of real people. Kratos was good at what he did. He excelled at the never-ending conquest, took satisfaction from it. But as he plunged deeper and deeper, losing himself in his duty to Ares, he lost sight of the things he took for granted, and he paid the ultimate price for it. I find it deeply relatable as a parent, trying to balance my duties as a father, as a husband, with running my own business, and then trying to find time for my passion, which is this YouTube gaming thing. It is really easy to lose yourself in one thing and neglect the others. As the Ghost of Sparta, Kratos starts a new chapter in his life. He reforges his grief and anger into wrathful quest for vengeance. In order to break the oath given to Ares, Kratos seeks help from other powerful beings and even other gods. It's the start of a tumultuous journey full of hardships. Kratos gets used multiple times, he becomes a tool in God's hands, but in the end, he frees himself from the oath. You have to give the Spartan warrior one thing, a true devotion to his goals. After a gruesome, vile campaign, Kratos is finally able to take revenge on Ares. Spartan kills the god of war. Having achieved his goal, abandoned by the gods and overcome by grief, Kratos tries to end his life. Yet even rest is denied to him. Athena saves Kratos. After Ares' death, his throne is empty. Kratos assumes Ares' place and becomes the new god of war. As god of war, Kratos leads multiple violent campaigns, meddling deeper into God's affairs, which in turn leads to numerous betrayals and clashes with other deities. He even dies multiple times, but each time he's able to come back from the depths of Tartarus, which again shows his great unrelenting devotion. Kratos slowly uncovers parts of his past. After killing Thanatos, the god of death, Kratos obtains a new title, the Destroyer of Worlds. In his never-ending conquest, the cycle of death, ruination and pain consumes many lives. It's this pursuit of power that finally catches Zeus' attention. Afraid that Kratos might pose a threat to him, Zeus tricks the god of war, stripping him of his power and killing him. With the help of the fallen titan Gaia, Kratos yet again climbs back from the depths of Tartarus and takes revenge on Zeus. It's here during this clash when we learn that Kratos is in fact Zeus' son. So even before assuming the mantle of god of war, Kratos was a demigod. In a poetic way, the prophecy of the marked man killing Zeus comes dangerously close to fulfillment. As Zeus barely escapes, Kratos vows to end the rule of gods. He goes back in time and brings Titans back. With new allies, he lays siege to Olympus. Kratos, wronged so many times by the gods, sees them as irresponsible usurpers. This is his final campaign, a long, daunting and brutal war. Kratos clashes against various Greek gods. Even his former allies, the Titans, betray him. But Kratos is vigilant, devoted to his cause. And it's this relentlessness and tenacity that turns out to have disastrous consequences. Kratos faces off against Poseidon and brutally kills him, which causes the oceans to flood Greece. Then he strikes down Helios, the sun god. As a result, Greece is engulfed in eternal darkness. God of War is ready to kill anyone who will stand on his way to Zeus, which he does. He murders his half-brother Hercules, then kills Hermes and Hera, unleashing plagues upon Greece as well as killing plant life in the realm. His blind rage shows again. Kratos learned nothing. In his rageful pursuit of his own goals, he becomes the prophesied destroyer of worlds. Greece is no more. Kratos finally faces off against Zeus. In his quest for vengeance, he destroyed his own world, but even that does not stop him. God of War kills Zeus, fulfilling the prophecy as well as completing the cycle of sons killing fathers. Zeus, who defied fate, later striking down his father, was now killed by his own son, a fitting end worthy of the grand Greek tragedy. But the greatest tragedy happened to Kratos. The demigod, not knowing his origins, viciously tempted by fate, used by the gods. A man who achieved unimaginable feats. Also a man who committed unspeakable crimes, and in the end lost it all. Kratos is a tragic character. His greatest strengths, his tenacity and relentlessness, combined with great devotion to the cause, are fantastic personality traits. Virtues of a man who could change the world for the better. Instead, Kratos' deep dedication, fueled by his tendencies to get overwhelmed with rage, which later got fused with his desire for vengeance, ultimately led to death, suffering and devastation. Finally, realizing his faults, at the very end, Kratos decides to end his life in an attempt to restore hope to the world. The post-credits scene shows a place where his corpse should be laying, only to discover that it's not there. Instead, we follow a trail of blood which leads us to the edge of the rock, suggesting that Kratos' journey might not yet be over. The Greek saga of Kratos' life is a tragic story. An Odyssey of war, so fitting into the mythos of ancient Greece. So, after that short God of War history lesson, it's about time to transition into the new chapter of Kratos' life, the Norse saga. God of War 2018 reintroduces Kratos as a much older man, a rugged, gritty, battle-hardened veteran longing for peace and rest. Unfortunately, twisted fate once again gives him no respite. We meet defeated, sorrowful Kratos as he prepares the burial site for his recently deceased wife. Together with his son, Atreus, they gather wood needed for the ritual. It's a sad, emotionally charged opening, showing two grieving family members. But I'm more interested in the unspoken message hidden here. That after years of war, misguided wrath and so much suffering, Kratos made an attempt to rebuild his life. He started family once again. He gave a chance to life. Therefore, the loss of his wife must have been even more soul-crushing to him. The person who helped him start anew is no more to accompany him. His son, Atreus, has to face an even tougher reality, as it is revealed that Kratos had to be quite a distant father.
This knife. It was hers. Now it is yours. She taught you to hunt.
She knew.
Show me.
Now?
Now.
Kratos having to ask if Atreus was taught to hunt by his mother means that he was absent. Why didn't he taught the boy himself? It proves that he didn't care enough, meaning that Atreus not only lost his mother, but right now has to endure life with his withdrawn, cold father. Grief becomes a common point for both Kratos and his son, but they deal with it differently. Atreus is just a boy, a child. He is heartbroken. He must find his way in this new reality. It's a very crucial moment for a child to have his emotional needs fulfilled, to find warmth and comfort. Unfortunately, Kratos is not able to fill the void which is devouring the boy's heart, at least not for now. Both the son and the father struggle to deal with the loss. Both of them try to hide it. The first task, which also serves as the tutorial section, focuses on a hunt. Kratos wants to see if Atreus is ready for their upcoming journey. He tasks his son with tracking down and hunting a deer.
What are we hunting?
You are hunting deer.
Which way?
In the direction of deer.
Okay, this way.
Initial interactions between Kratos and Atreus are rough. The Spartan is very harsh and demanding towards his son.
There it is!
Hold! What are you doing? Now his guard is up. Only fire. Only fire. When I tell you to fire.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better. Find it. Find it.
Facial expression is cool. the tutorial perfectly captures the principles of modern game design. It gradually explains every facet of the experience, guiding players so even the most casual gamers would learn how to play. At a certain point, however, the pop-up windows containing basic information can become tiresome. Still, this is consistent with modern design patterns. Users can decide and control how much information the game provides. Hardcore gamers, for instance, can turn off the hints. Santa Monica Studio smoothly incorporates additional elements of exploration into this initial experience. During the hunt, Kratos and Atreus can stray from the main path and briefly explore additional zones. This way, players can learn about the Nornir chests, which require solving a short puzzle to unlock its contents. They can find some additional loot. So it's a pretty standard yet exquisitely executed tutorial section. What makes this section particularly interesting is that Santa Monica Studio doesn't waste any opportunity to deepen immersion and explore character personalities. Atreus and Kratos talk during their escapades. If the player chooses a side activity during the hunt, Atreus will comment on it, asking his father why they are straying from their goal. Can I explore? Sure.
Here's this way. I can see more tracks.
I knew something is here, boy.
Follow you.
Yes, you can follow me. This is a sign of things to come. The writers masterfully use opportunities provided by the gameplay design in order to flesh out characters in a meaningful way. Traversing longer distances, exploring the world, completing side activities and quests. No venture is left without a comment, a clash of opinions, or teaching attempt. It's truly astonishing how thoroughly the developers seized each opportunity to enrich the narrative. I can only imagine that they went through the project multiple times, finding quiet spots to fill with relevant conversations. The writing is so good, it doesn't feel forced. It's just a father and son talking about the world around them as they travel.
Mother said Odin's disciples fill them with gifts and hang them where thieves can't reach them. That one looked really old.
Foolish.
What is? Worshipping the gods?
The gods care nothing for them. Men should not pray to monsters.
The first hunt explores the personalities of both family members. Atreus is just a child, very curious about the world around him. He is fascinated by new things, which can diminish his focus. This places him directly at odds with his father. Kratos is a man of great focus and unbreakable will. Judging his son's decision-making is the true purpose of the hunt. Kratos wants to know if the boy is ready for the journey.
Can I have my bow back now?
Can you hit it from here?
We should get closer.
Atreus has a tendency to be hasty and act rashly, without preparation or proper analysis of the surroundings. He is eager to prove himself to his father. Atreus is just a child seeking acceptance and affection from Kratos. He desperately needs support, especially right now after losing his mother. But Kratos denies him affection. The old Spartan is a battle-hardened soldier who treats his duties extremely seriously. He has experienced the atrocities of the world. Death, destruction, suffering, and loss of the loved ones. Kratos' tragic past life haunts him. The painful experiences dehumanized him, stripping him of emotions other than anger and regret. I think that's why Kratos has such a problem adapting to this new situation. His skill set made him a great warrior and a valuable leader, but his iron fist approach doesn't fit the role of a father. Add insurmountable grief on top of that, and you have a man who struggles deeply to keep up with this new reality. The hunt is not only a test for Atreus, it becomes a test for Kratos. Can he deal with being a teacher and a father in an uncomfortably dangerous environment? Kratos, knowing these stakes, becomes impatient. He still gives Atreus some valuable advice, but does so harshly.
Wait, no excuses.
I think there is one more factor at play. Kratos lost his previous family and knows all the negative aspects of life. He fell into this deep void of depression. And when he thought that he could start anew, he lost his second wife. I think that deep down, Kratos is afraid of his emotions. He chose to extinguish his passions and avoid affection. He already lost so much. Why would he open up for more suffering? There is a poignant scene where Atreus shoots the deer but lacks the fortitude to finish off the animal.
Steady your aim and breathe in. Exhale and release.
I got it.
Good. Your knife. No. Finish what you started.
I can't.
Kratos takes his son's hands and helps him do what's necessary. This shows a significant difference in character between father and son. The clash of personalities becomes deeply embedded in the plot. Atreus is a young, open-minded and empathetic person who cares for other beings. Kratos, on the other hand, does not let unnecessary thoughts occupy his mind. He is focused on his goals, pursuing them with boundless devotion. After a lifetime of wars, betrayals and false promises, he avoids humans and despises gods. This is why he became the survival expert, ready to do what needs to be done without hesitation, which becomes poetically ironic when he hesitates to hug and comfort his son after achieving his first kill during the hunt. No!
We're gonna fight that?
We have no choice.
The tutorial section smoothly transitions into a boss fight, teaching players the basics of fighting bigger foes. After killing the troll, Atreus unleashes his fury and frustration upon the dead giant.
That's what you get!
Boy,
Think I'm afraid of you! You're nothing to me!
boy, look at me. Look at me, boy. Boy, look at me.
The boy vents his frustrations and insecurities in a cathartic display of anger, completely losing control of himself. This is too much for Kratos.
You are not ready.
Kratos learned to control his anger. He reforged his greatest weakness, both his drive for revenge and blind wrath, into discipline. He sealed his greatest flaws deep within himself, which in turn made him even more apathetic. Kratos shuts down emotions, leaving space only for logic, cold calculation, and relentless perception. Atreus does not understand this approach. He becomes even angrier, reinforcing his lack of control over his emotions.
What? Are you serious? I found the deer. I proved myself. How am I not ready?
We are going home.
Kratos trains him like a soldier, using the only methods life taught him. I think he's deliberate in his actions, believing this way the boy will develop a tough exterior. By reducing emotions, Atreus will learn to control them. This is a mistake. Unattended needs of the child will hurt their relationship in the long run.
Why are you doing that?
Too slow. Try again.
Cut it out!
Weak. Again. Again.
Stop it!
Again.
The task before Kratos and his son is a great one. The last wish of Atreus' mother was for her ashes to be taken to the highest peak of all the realms. A monumental task and a long, difficult journey. Atreus is eager to start the trip, but Kratos holds back.
Your anger. You can get lost in it. The path ahead is difficult. And you, Atreus, are clearly not ready.
I think under the guise of thorough preparation, he hides fear. Kratos tries to suppress his doubts, pushing his son harder. In the end, I think he's mostly protecting himself more than Atreus. And I can understand that. You see, the moment my son was born, a switch in my brain turned. From that point onward, a small portion of my consciousness meanders around my boy's well-being. It's one thing that hit me the hardest after becoming a father. So I can understand doubts about sending your child to potentially dangerous scenarios. Kratos is no more ready for the journey than his son, but his hand will be forced. A stranger appears at their house.
I thought you'd be bigger. But you're definitely the one. Long way from home, aren't you?
What do you want?
The stranger assumes a threatening stance. The man is searching for something and clearly knows a few things about Kratos. The old Spartan tries to remain stoic and calm. He actively restrains himself, showing how far Kratos have come since his murderous rampage days. But it doesn't work. The stranger is unrelenting, which finally leads to conflict.
I warned you.
Finally.
Damn.
You would not listen.
Fine. My turn.
The fuck? It turns out the stranger has a trick up his sleeve. With a surprising show of strength, we are welcomed to God of War's first proper narrative boss fight. But wait, we already had one boss fight, against that huge troll. Yes, but there are some differences in how boss fights are crafted in this game. I'll touch on it a little bit right now, but I will expand on the topic in the chapter devoted to combat and progression. The fight against the stranger shows the true craftsmanship and artistry of Santa Monica Studio. Just as Kratos flexes his muscles, so do the developers in masterful cinematic execution of the encounter. The gameplay seamlessly connects to the cutscenes. And the camera work, the camera work, it's perfect. The camera work.
Nerve, did I?
The fight is dynamic, emotional and brutal. Both men stand toe-to-toe with each other. Both are incredibly strong, able to withstand vicious beatings. The stranger seems like a true degenerate, taking satisfaction from the interaction. When he realizes that Kratos is protecting someone, things get serious.
Why are there two beds in
The stranger boss fight is a three-phase encounter, with phases cleverly hidden between cutscenes. The enemy progressively gets stronger, using more advanced attacks. It's not a hard encounter, but it makes a huge impression thanks to all the destruction, the narrative stakes, and the beautiful visual choreography. As the fight continues, it becomes more dramatic. During the combat, Kratos and his enemy wreck the whole place. Destructible trees breaking during playable sections combined with scripted cinematic devastation show the clash of two truly powerful beings. At the same time, developers familiarize players who might not have played previous God of War games with Kratos' true might.
I'd hope that you, of everyone I'd faced, would finally make me feel something, but you can't.
Defeating Stranger marks the true end of the tutorial section. Kratos realizes that he can't hide anymore, and whether he and Atreus are prepared or not, they have no choice but to embark on the journey. God of War makes an interestingly risky choice. The whole adventure basically revolves around an escort quest, which historically has been very difficult to execute well. AI of artificial companions often broke, with bots getting stuck, hampering players' exploration or impeding combat. Games like Resident Evil 4 show that the industry is slowly learning from its mistakes, proving you can create a decent AI companion who adds to the story instead of detracting from it. As a gameplay asset, Atreus is designed incredibly well. He doesn't get in a way, doesn't get stuck. Developers cleverly teleport him into the right position while he's off camera. This is exceedingly helpful during scripted events, like clamping. Atreus always jumps onto Kratos' back right from behind camera, so you don't have to wait for him. Your boy can also help during combat. Atreus can distract the enemy and deal a little bit of damage on his own. If you actively use his skills, he becomes a great help during encounters. Atreus offers unique skills that can be used to further increase combat's depth. I'll talk more about this in the combat section. The journey to the highest peak becomes the narrative background of the story, an end goal. However, the changing, difficult relationship between the father and his son becomes the main focus of the game. Atreus' haste, childlike playfulness and curiosity help the duo make new friends, but can also lead to dangerous situations. Kratos is a stoic type, a man of few words who conveys his thoughts directly, which is kind of the opposite of my personality. I always try to approach topics from many angles, drowning people with tsunami of words. Characters like Kratos or Geralt of Rivia are so fascinating to me because of their bluntness. Kratos tries to temper his son's recklessness. He uses the many moments they spend together to explain the world to the boy. He wants to prepare Atreus for the harshness of adult life. And he knows. We have already covered Kratos' story. I think it speaks to every parent's wish to protect their children, to prepare them for the real world, both the good sides and the threats. Many parents draw from their own experiences, which is of course commendable, but Kratos does it differently. He explains the world from the impartial, objective perspective. He detaches himself from the moment and looks at the grand scope of things, which is so impressive. Kratos' advices become extremely helpful because he doesn't tell his son how to feel. He explains reality, anchoring them in it. I'm out of my depth. The example with the wolves is a good one. Atreus fairly observes that the wolves were starving, which is why they attacked.
They were just hungry.
What?
The wolves. They weren't mean. They were starving.
Yes, I imagine they were.
Kratos agrees, but points out that it doesn't matter. At that moment, it was between their life or the wolves' lives. There was no place for thought, just pure survival. Killing the beasts was done in self-defense and shouldn't be grounds for doubts. Kratos uses his experiences as a soldier, warrior and leader to bring foreign ideas closer to the mind of a child. Another memorable scene plays out while the father and son fight against dark elves, trying to reach powerful artifact. They land in the middle of a war between dark elves and light elves. Atreus sympathizes with the radiant side of the conflict.
Look! Another light elf. What's he doing? Oh no! Why are they killing him? He didn't do anything.
Do not assume. You are seeing the end of a war, boy. You do not know what led to this moment.
But he didn't even defend himself.
That was his choice. We make ours.
It's such a powerful perspective. Kratos doesn't judge the conflict hastily. There are usually multiple factors at play during wars. It's just a coincidence that Kratos and Atreus have to fight against the Dark Elves, who probably have their own reasons for being hostile towards two strangers invading their lands. Kratos doesn't hold grudges, showing tremendous character growth from his vengeance-ridden past. He just viciously pursues his goals and valiantly defends his family. I love Santa Monica Studios' broader approach to teaching a child. It shows the approach where parents don't shape their children's prejudices, but try to explain things in an objective manner, letting children form their own opinions. Maybe this is a way to go in our current, opinionated and politically polarized world. To teach our children to look at the grander scope of things, to be able to at least hear the arguments of the other side instead of blindly demonizing it. If we want to change the world for the better, shouldn't we start by shaping healthier future generations? The journey represents a perfect bonding opportunity. It allows for character growth for both Atreus and his father. Kratos shows his son the harsh ways of life, explains survival techniques and ugly aspects of human nature. In the same time, Atreus reminds Kratos of compassion. The boy pulls his father out of stagnation and deep apathy. It opens Kratos to emotions and unearths the humanity buried deep within him. Norse mythology presents an opportunity for a fresh start. Not only narratively, it's a completely new world full of potential. This world, however, is largely foreign to Kratos. It was supposed to be his place of hiding. Funny enough, it turns out that Atreus seems to know far more about this place than his father. The boy, trapped in his house and the nearest surroundings, used his mother's stories, myths and legends as a window into the wider world. It introduces an interesting dynamic where Kratos and Atreus are codependent during their journey.
Boy, what does it say?
Something about an eternal war for the light. I don't get it. If both sides...
Kratos is the veteran, experienced in the ways of survival. He knows the nature of man and gods, but he has to rely on his son's knowledge to understand the rules of this harsh world. Rules that he previously willfully ignored. This simple dynamic is also a neat way of incorporating actual Norse mythology and lore into the game. There is knowledge hidden in God of War. 2018's entry in the franchise offers completely new environments and atmosphere. This is a very personal story, and it shows in the way player interacts with the game. You can notice right away that camera placement is different from the older games. It's placed directly behind our character, offering seamless transitions during narrative scenes. No cuts. Everything is kept within one single shot.
Wait for my mark.
I encourage you to really take time and look at the camera work. It's glued to Kratos, rarely transitioning to his son during conversations or narrative events. And whatever happens, it stays close, personally close, allowing players to experience those beautiful, truly wonderful face animations. This way, players build sort of a relationship with the main duo. It feels like we, the players, are actually there with Kratos and Atreus. It's not accidental that camera shakes during various transitions. The camera
Struck a nerve, did I?
It's supposed to look like the cameraman is actually taking steps, trying to squeeze in between bulky Kratos and his son. This operation helps to ground players, makes every situation feel personal. It also magnifies combat. Fighting sequences can get chaotic, hectic. Sometimes it's hard to make sense of what's happening. During the first encounter with the stranger, Kratos is hurled across vast distances, breaking trees and shattering branches in his wake. It's such an intense and dynamic scene. When Kratos gets punched deep into the rock formation, the sensation of confinement within crumbling stone evokes a profound sense of claustrophobia and unease, all thanks to great and consistent camera work. Grounded personal presentation helps to enforce the scale and grandeur of the world around you.
Who is it? Who are you afraid I'll find? Let's find out.
Damn! God of War shows multiple fantastic vistas. Environments are rich with detail, and thanks to the great graphics engine, I was constantly in awe while exploring new places. Holy shit, the sculpture. The graphic design is top-notch. Particle effects enhance the spectacle, increasing immersion. Just look at those snow trails, unyielding fog, god rays, or the play of light and shadow in the caves. The game looks incredible. With the camera kept so close to the protagonists, developers can reinforce the scale of the world. It magnifies encounters with some of the gigantic creatures. Come on, they are flexing with this. The camera anchors players within the setting, but still sells the grandeur of the spectacle. God of War draws heavily from Norse mythology, while using the real world as a reference point. the developers traveled to Iceland to gather inspiration. Midgard is a world dominated by harsh cold climates, dense Arctic forests, sprawling tundras and frozen wastelands. However, it also offers some environmental diversity. The design of those environments excels in creating vast, impressive backgrounds, including towering fjords, various rock formations, seemingly endless plains, and hills or lush foliage blocking the way. Speaking of exploration, God of War employs a traversal system that restricts players to narrow corridors with a few wider, partially open zones. Players cannot jump over the non-interactable obstacles. Invisible walls masked with deep foliage, fallen trees, rock formations, or steep wall-like hills restrict players' movement. This is especially apparent in the early hours of the game, which are highly linear with few side activities. As the game progresses, the world gradually opens up. New, smaller or medium-sized zones become accessible after specific story-related milestones. Kratos and Atreus spent significant amount of time traveling by boat, moving from island to island and discovering new landmarks. Later in the game, fast travel becomes available, allowing players to revisit previously explored locations to collect missed treasures. You see, players cannot access every zone or chest from the start. During adventures, they will encounter peculiar blue vines, entangling some containers or blocking paths. The same goes for roots covered in red sap. In a true Metroidvania fashion, God of War unlocks new abilities as the narrative progresses. Then, players can come back to previous locations and unlock missed treasures or hidden paths. The game offers a wealth of side content. Numerous wooden or ornamental chests are scattered through the game's world. Some hidden, some easily accessible. Developers provide a completion sheet for each zone, making it easier to track hidden or missed content. The bell puzzles and Nornir chests require a keen eye to spot hidden runic symbols. Players can find maps leading to buried treasures.
Read it out, boy.
Hey, it's another treasure map.
Treasure map. I know where this is.
Santa Monica Studio prioritizes quality over quantity, with most side content offering meaningful rewards, such as gear enhancements, new runic attacks or crafting resources. The additional content engages players with simple yet rewarding requirements, avoiding the checkbox approach seen in other open-world games, notably Ubisoft ones. Side content offers engagement and deepens the lore. Atreus and Kratos discuss their findings. Writers successfully weave narrative beats into every aspect of the game. It's so good! God of War encapsulates many mundane collectibles, artifacts which could be later sold for a solid portion of hack silver. Then there are Odin's ravens. Odin's eyes spying on everything happening throughout the realms. Destroying ravens appeals to the completionist in all of us. This kind of content is created primarily for achievement hunters. Yet it's crafted with thought and care, connecting lore elements with the completionist exercise. Ravens also make specific sounds to alert players, making them easier to find. There is quality even in the smallest, negligible aspect of the game. The game also offers higher level challenges, which you just have to discover.
Is that a friggin' dragon?
Santa Monica Studio chose to create a dynamic experience. Few areas contain destructible trees, allowing for deeper immersion during combat. This focus on destructible parts of the environment is upheld during scripted events and climbing sections, where parts of the terrain often crumble. It creates a sense of realistic landscape, dynamically shaped by the player's actions. I must admit, while I enjoy the scripted illusion of dynamism, I have an issue with the level design. Let me preface this by saying it's a minor issue, but still it came up during my time with God of War. Most gamers understand various level design patterns cemented in the gaming landscape, such as the corridor model of designing zones, with precisely crafted paths separated from the rest of the world by invisible walls. Designers have become adept at creating the illusion of obstructions, justifying movement restrictions. This allows for more streamlined level design, giving developers tools to craft the exact type of experience they want. It also gives them direct control over players' progression. They can place triggers for various cutscenes in narrow corridors, ensuring that players won't miss them or approach them from an unwanted angle. In narrative-heavy game, this makes perfect sense. Years ago, when I was introducing my wife to the wonderful world of video games, she struggled to understand the game boundaries. Let's take the newer Tomb Raider games for instance. They offer more open environments, still limited by invisible walls, especially in the forest areas. In many places, the restrictions are clear: a mountain, a wall, a ravine. But it were places like waist-high rocks blocking the way that made my wife ask, why cannot I go there? I should be able to jump over the rocks. That's the issue. Most of us hardcore gamers stopped noticing poorly masked restrictions. We just understand how the games should be played. We know how this model works. During my time in the realms of God of War, I encountered a few places with poorly hidden invisible walls. Here Kratos should be able to just jump down and continue his journey. Another example of artificial obstacles. You see this thing, a ledge. Like, you should be able to climb it, right? Come on, but in this type of games where there are just strict corridors that you can follow, things like that are just parts of the terrain, not accessible parts of the terrain. The gentle approach up the rocks in other scripted cases could very well be used as a pathway forward. And let me remind you, this is a tiny, minuscule issue, but the aforementioned moments were immersion breaking for me, which made them noticeable. But that's not all. Let's expand our perspective to treasure placement. God of War adopts a modern, refined approach to treasure hunting. Loot can be stashed in different types of chests, making it easy for players to understand the kind of contents they can expect. Wooden chests offer mundane resources like hacksilver. Stone chests hold gear and higher quality crafting resources. Golden chests contain runic attacks, summons, talismans and pommels. Then there are cipher chests and runic Nornir chests. The design principle is clear. Signal to the player what kind of reward they can expect. It's good, it makes perfect sense. But imagine my surprise when I started seemingly randomly finding beautiful golden ornamental chests in abandoned caverns, or worse, left out in the open in the middle of a forest. It breaks immersion. It begs the question, how did they end up there? Okay, so I want to show you something. I got here by boat, right? And this looks pretty nice. I mean, the graphics look awesome. Just look at the eyes being there probably for a long time, maybe for ages. Like, that's cool. Here we have this fallen giant turning into stone. Also really cool. But here, this zone, this ornamental chest, which is here, it's also very gamey, because who would have stored chests in a place like this? This whole area is just very gamey. And what I think this game lacks is the free movement, free jumping. I cannot try to maybe jump there, which I should be able to do. And I understand this is how the games work, right? So I guess it's fine, but when this thing, oh, look there, you see? Another chest. Another chest. The chests are stored on the high ground, and let's say that this is a pirate cove where pirates store their chest, and they stored it higher to avoid the water flooding it. Okay, the problem arises when places like this whole zone, which exists just to provide the additional place to get your loot from, when they are consistent through the game. So it's not just the pirate cove, or however you want to call it. It's just everywhere. And it kinda takes you out of the game. In the end, it boils down to your own suspension of disbelief. I'm not the one to obsessively point out game logic moments in each title. Let's be real, in titles grounded less in reality, games like Mario, Crash Bandicoot, various roguelikes or boomer shooters, this kind of level design wouldn't be a problem. The thing is, in the case of God of War, I noticed those immersion breaking parts. They were prevalent enough that I started thinking about the issue. This is a title that takes itself very seriously. The experience is grounded in harsh realism, mythical flavor aside. The artificial movement restrictions and abundance of various glowy treasure chests feel very gamey. Maybe the solution would be to hide the chests better or create a more rugged version of them, but this way they would be less noticeable. I think the developers willingly sacrificed parts of the immersive gameplay design for ease of accessibility and readability. This whole ordeal makes me curious. How will the industry view this kind of game design 10, 15 years from now? Will it be considered as an outdated relic of the past, or will it still be valid?
Look at that. That must be the Ring Temple.
It looks kinda ominous.
The world of God of War pulls strongly from Nordic mythology. In fact, Midgard is only one of the few planes that you'll get to explore. Kratos and Atreus' great journey will become more complex, requiring visits to other realms. This allows developers to stretch their creativity beyond Iceland-based frozen landscapes and show players fantastic new lands. Alfheim, the land of the elves, with lush forests, colorful flora, pristine water and magic butterflies imitating flower petals. The volcanic areas of Muspelheim coated in ash, Helheim, the land of the dead, or the misty challenge grounds of Nilfheim. Each plane has its own atmosphere, distinct aesthetic and feel. Midgard is still the main plane, gameplay-wise, while other realms are significantly smaller but offer their own challenges. Lands like Helheim and Alfheim become grounds for dramatic events that push the plot forward. Muspelheim and Nilfheim serve more as side realms, with challenges focused on exploration and combat. Mid to late game zones intended for gear upgrades and developing Kratos' strength. The soundscape of God of War is incredible. Enemy roars and screams, the sound of Leviathan axe striking foes or being recalled, all enhance the sense of immersion. Combat becomes even more dynamic with satisfying hit sounds, especially when enemies are slammed against the walls. Developers opted for a sparse usage of the soundtrack. The music itself is incredibly good, based on Icelandic chanting. It focuses on emotional side of the story, with a lot of ambience. The soundtrack magnifies emotions of grief and sorrow, but can also highlight Kratos' dark past. Music enhances the emotional cutscenes. These are the moments when the soundtrack shines the most. The soft singing voice evokes the feelings of melancholia and fragility, enchanting the scenes in which it appears. Voice acting is outstanding. God of War raises the bar for actors' performances in video games so high. Christopher Judge as Kratos is just terrific. He can be calm and collected one moment and then summon the rage of the Spartan the next. Sunny Suljic makes such a believable Atreus. Curious, empathetic, incredibly observant. The main leads share this natural chemistry. Only thanks to it they can sell the father-son argument so believably. Kratos grits his teeth in anger while his resentful child lashes out at him.
You were off hunting long.
It would serve you to stop talking.
It's so good. Voice acting is magnified by impeccable writing. All the side characters leave a long-lasting impression. I loved Alistair Duncan as Mimir, a man with a sharp tongue and incredible wit. Jeremy Davies and Daniel Bisutti delivered such strong performances. Motion capture allowed the actors to use their full acting repertoire, and it's so worth it. The facial expressions alone allow players to immerse themselves in the characters' feelings. This incredible attention to detail is what third A in AAA should stand for. It's about having budget to spend on additional immersive features. New animations which will influence the gameplay, like monsters tripping when Kratos throws the Leviathan axe into their feet. AAA should mean a greater focus on immersion, depth and detail, not just a higher asking price. With all that being said, did the game manage to avoid gameplay errors, bugs and framerate issues? Almost. My experience with God of War was fantastic. I played on the highest graphical settings. The menu allows for decent customization with many accessibility features. Combat and movement are sharp and responsive. There are no problems with interaction prompts. Loading is mostly unnoticeable, hidden behind scripted transitions. In my 47 hours of gameplay, I didn't encounter a single crash, which is commendable. The game failed me only once. After particularly long and dynamic cutscene, the game started to stutter when I landed in Helheim. The framerate issues lasted for a minute or two. Then, in the same session, I encountered a few places and objects where textures didn't load properly.
Staying on the boat.
Come on. The textures are bad.
So the game likely encountered some kind of a bug or memory issue during transition from scripted event to the gameplay, which influenced the following segment of the adventure. With only one instance of the game bugging, I can confidently say that God of War is an exceptionally well-polished title. And I'm Polish, so I know a little bit about polishing. Combat is the defining feature of the God of War franchise. Bloody executions, brutal takedowns, and satisfying fighting mechanics have always been integral to the series. However, the 2018's game introduced significant changes. First, we will circle back to the camera. With the point of view locked close behind Kratos' back, combat became much more personal and immersive. Kratos wields the Leviathan axe as his primary weapon. This axe, previously used by Kratos' wife, introduces personal stakes and sentimental value. And let me tell you, whoever designed this weapon is a genius. The Leviathan axe is incredibly satisfying to use. The throw and recall feature changes the flow of combat significantly, allowing for various combinations, adding new ways of crowd control. Players can clip enemies' feet and interrupt monsters' attacks. It's great and oh so satisfying to use. Fast attacks offer more control over the encounter's tempo and can be chained into short combos. Stronger attacks launch enemies into the air, rendering them vulnerable to extended combos. Not only that, the environment also plays an active role during the encounters. Bum, bum, bum. You can push monsters off cliffs or shove them against the rocks, which increases their stun meter exponentially. This stun meter indicates how close the enemy is to being stunned. Once it fills up, Kratos can perform a gory and brutal takedown. Each monster has a unique execution animation. The downside is that each enemy type has only one takedown animation, which can become repetitive over time. The Leviathan axe is not the only weapon in Kratos' arsenal. He can also use his fists, which build up the stun meter faster but deal less damage. The game encourages this playstyle by introducing enemies immune to the Leviathan axe. Barehanded combat also complements the axe throwing mechanic. Later in the game, players can unlock seamless transitions from throwing the axe into the fist combo. Kratos is not all offense. The Guardian Shield is another essential tool eagerly used by the Spartan during combat. When it comes to defense, Kratos can opt to dodge or block enemy attacks. Blocking throws Kratos off balance, staggering him for a moment. It's not the ideal solution. The intended way of using shield is to block at the right moment, parrying opponent's attack. Kratos can then capitalize on the situation by counterattacking. The game telegraphs parryable attacks with yellow circles and indicates unblockable heavy attacks with red circles. Most attack animations can be cancelled into a dodge, allowing for more aggressive playstyle. This system is also very welcoming towards casual players. The runic attacks, however, cannot be cancelled with the same effectiveness as the regular swings. BAM!
Now we're going.
Runic abilities are powerful skills which can be used on cooldown during combat. These attacks are separated into fast and heavy, each offering unique benefits. It effectively means that you have two separate strong abilities to use set on different cooldowns. Runic attacks offer variety. Some focus on damage, others are more proficient in crowd control, with ranges and additional effects. Some runic attacks are very good in dealing single target massive DPS, while others can be used to affect enemies in wide area. The game uses 3 statistics to represent runic attacks power: damage, frost and stun. Stat-wise, the choice is between dealing high damage, freezing enemies or building stun meter, or combining those factors. In case of runic attacks, the drawback, balancing their strong utility, is placing them on longer cooldowns. Those powerful abilities usually take some time to be used, which opens the player to receiving damage in the meantime. There is some strategy and thought required for skillful usage of runic attacks. But that's not all. Developers add depth to runic attacks through upgrades. Each attack can be upgraded twice. Most of those upgrades, besides flatly increasing strength of the skill, also add a new effect. An increased area of effect, another slash in a combo, or ground slam after last hit from the combo. These upgrades require extra button presses or longer button holds, actively engaging the player and giving control over the combo. Santa Monica Studio allows for player expression through runic attack upgrades. You can press the attack one more time to extend the combo, at the risk of exposing Kratos to enemy attacks. This focus on active engagement reflects the developer's priorities, and I absolutely support it. Some equipable items also come with active abilities, adding another layer to combat. The enemy roster is varied, with each type using different tactics and skills. Draugrs are basic enemies with easily recognizable and predictable attack patterns. Kratos can easily throw them into the air and perform longer combos. This is the perfect enemy to learn combat mechanics. As the game progresses, new variants like huge hulking versions with stronger attacks and casters with fire spells are introduced. Throwing the Leviathan axe at caster's arm when the enemy is channeling the fire magic prevents the cast. Even in the most mundane aspects of the combat, developers still allow for additional depth. Nightmares, small flying monsters, can spew poison or shoot freezing projectiles. They can be brought down from the sky with the use of Leviathan axe throws or Atreus arrows. Both heavy Draugr and Nightmares can capture Atreus. This is a great move as it threatens the boy during combat. Without that, Atreus is free to run between enemies and attack them at will. He deals some passive damage, but can also shoot stronger projectiles on player's command. Using this skill is incredibly smooth as Atreus automatically targets enemies in front of Kratos. By attacking enemies, Atreus can also draw their attention, giving the player some breathing space. Revenants, ghastly immaterial enemies, require boy's help to be brought down. Player has to command Atreus to shoot the Revenant, which staggers the ghost, making it vulnerable for a while. Perfect enemy for practicing teamwork. Speaking of ghosts, Atreus has his own version of strong attacks on cooldown. You see, the boy can summon spectral animals. Various types of ghosts can focus either on dealing damage, stunning or freezing enemies. One of them can even spawn a healing item.
Expecto Patronum! It's a deer!
I preferred Boar Stampede as it dealt moderate damage but mostly kept the enemy stunned for a brief while, which increased my options. I could use it to try to heal up, or to dish out safe damage. For example, I could combo it with longer, more risky runic attack, especially if the enemy was a particularly evasive type. As players master controlling both Kratos and Atreus, the combat becomes a coordinated dance. The purpose of this system is to give players options during encounters. This is why so many upgrades focus on active abilities, and why a lot of gear elements also have their own percentage-based effects which can occur from time to time. God of War gradually ramps up the challenge by introducing stronger foes. Ogres, huge tanky juggernauts, which become the main threat the moment they appear in an encounter. Hellwalkers immune to Leviathan axe. Seidru Reavers able to self-regenerate, making fighting them all about dishing fast damage. Each enemy has a distinct role, strengths and weaknesses. The combat landscape is shaped by the monsters you fight. Thanks to it, developers don't need to swarm players with a lot of enemies. They just have to use the right combinations. Players must learn enemy attack patterns and be aware of their surroundings. The combat is very responsive and snappy. With the animation cancelling, players retain almost full control over Kratos. Fighting rewards conscious cooldown management and perception. On higher difficulty levels, combat requires strategic decision making, target prioritization, and using all available resources. In all that chaos, Atreus is not an obstacle. Kratos' son becomes an invaluable asset. Health management during combat relies on health stones, found on the ground in specific areas. This way developers can control the flow of combat and the number of mistakes players make. It's a really neat way of designing combat encounters. But how can players circumvent this restriction if they struggle with particular fight? Firstly, enemies can sometimes drop weaker health stones after death. The more reliable resources of additional HP gain lay within gear progression. Players can use Talisman, which gives health on use. There are also enchantments with health burst. Few armor sets give a small amount of HP regen. The most useful solution was to equip Atreus with runic vestments, which increase his chance to find small health stones during combat. It proved to be very useful. Since we are discussing resources, Kratos has another vital meter at his disposal, the rage meter. During combat, the rage meter gradually fills up. Once it reaches a certain point, the player can drive Kratos into a frenzy.
Come on, more. Okay, we're not done.
Rageful Kratos passively regains health and deals massive amounts of damage. This is your strongest offensive cooldown. Interestingly, it's also woven into the narrative in a very fitting way, enhancing the believability of Kratos' struggle to control his wrath and rely on it in dire situations. This feature symbolizes Kratos' significant growth from his past of uncontrolled anger. Each victorious encounter awards experience points, which can be spent on skill trees. There are 3 trees, one for the Leviathan axe, one for the shield, and one tied to Atreus' bow. These skill trees primarily add new active skills to the fighting rotation, deepening the combat system. They introduce new mechanics that require effort from the player to be fully exploited. This can include additional combo strings or new opening attacks that deal significant damage but may leave Kratos vulnerable for a while. It's really good. I love this approach to skill trees, widening the repertoire of available options, increasing the scope of players' expression. Casual players may stick to few favorite combos and skills, while hardcore players facing the toughest difficulties will need to master every skill to prevail. It's a beautifully designed system. The only passive skills are found in Atreus' bow branches. Those nodes increase the number of shots, enhance the bow's combat capabilities, and allow him to control enemies around Kratos more effectively. This system is designed so that players can achieve full completion of all the skill trees around midpoint of the game. I have never favored games that allow for full skill completion. I think it reduces replayability and players' agency. If players are expected to get everything by design, there is no real choice, no potential for meaningful build making. But God of War is not an RPG title. It just uses some of RPG mechanics. Skill tree is designed to be completed. The main goal of it is to unlock the aforementioned potential for creative fighting opportunities. It's up to the player to actually utilize options provided. I can accept that. Excessive experience points can be used to upgrade runic attacks and Atreus summons, a thoughtful way to maintain the value of EXP. Interestingly, experience and skill trees do not affect Kratos' overall level. This aspect further emphasizes that skills are designed to expand players' options rather than directly strengthen the character. Monsters also have levels assigned to them, and stronger enemies with higher levels often guard valuable loot. Players can choose to test their luck or increase their power first and then return. I appreciate when games introduce stronger enemies on few occasions. Opponents artificially scaled to player power level undermine the sense of progression. So, how does level progression work in God of War? The game offers 2 separate character progressions. The first is the aforementioned skills, which add depth to the gameplay. This is the horizontal progression. The second type of progression, the vertical one, which increases players' power level and statistics, is tied to gear. Kratos becomes passively stronger through armor upgrades, various talisman, axe pommels and enhancements. Gear affects Kratos' statistics, which are straightforward and explained clearly to the player. This is where the actual build making becomes possible. Players can focus on chosen stats, turning Kratos into a tank or glass cannon DPS. Those who prefer frequent runic attacks can develop the cooldown stat, while players aiming for gear random effects or resource farming can focus on the lag stat. I chose the traditional tanky DPS route, mainly developing vitality, defense and strength stats. This way, I turned Kratos into tanky juggernaut. In my opinion, this is the most versatile build. Armor looks decent. Higher level legendary armor sets can be impressive. The cool thing is the graphical consistency in armor design. Gear focusing on vitality and defense is mostly full plate armor completely covering Kratos, while sets focusing on damage, cooldown reduction or frost build-up tend to look lighter, revealing more skin, usually relying mostly on pauldrons with few leather strips. Atreus' armor upgrades work differently. His gear doesn't affect Kratos' stats, but offers Atreus various perks. One outfit increases arrow damage, another enhances Atreus' melee proficiency and prolongs stun effects. The one I used gave Atreus a chance to find health stones during combat, allowing me to take more risks in encounters. Armor and various enhancements can be upgraded. God of War features a diverse pool of upgrade materials. Most gear elements require their own separate resources, especially to reach the highest level. This adds to the satisfaction when players find the last part needed for an upgrade. However, the wide variety of resources can become confusing. Another modern element of God of War's design is the power progression of the enemies. As the player grows stronger, so do the monsters. Generally, I'm against enemy scaling systems, because I enjoy the sense of growth that comes from hard work and experience. Systems like Skyrim's auto-leveling monsters or Assassin's Creed Odyssey's world that constantly adjusts itself to the player level completely disrupts the sense of power progression. Thankfully, Santa Monica Studio found a clever way to incorporate enemy catch-up mechanics. Instead of tying enemy strength to character progression, it is linked to the plot progression and occurs in waves. After reaching certain narrative milestones, the levels of monsters throughout the world increases. Previously visited zones included. I think it only happens twice. If you upgrade your gear and explore the world, it's easy to stay ahead of the level curve. I appreciate this model of enemy level scaling, as it doesn't devalue players' progression while still maintaining the challenging experience.
This one looks strong. Oof. No. Combo attack.
Boss battles are the pinnacle of combat in God of War. Most of these fights take place in wide, expansive arenas, allowing players to engage on their own terms. Previously I made the distinction between narrative and regular bosses. This is the time to explain what I meant. Narrative bosses are key story encounters with rich usage of cutscenes. Those cutscenes usually separate the subsequent phases of the encounter. These battles carry significant narrative weight, making them extremely dynamic and dramatic. The encounter with the stranger is a prime example. Developers use cinematics not only to divide encounter phases, but also to place checkpoints after each scene. So even if the player dies, they don't have to redo the entire fight. This approach makes crucial battles less frustrating and tedious. The major boss encounters become a memorable events rather than a hurdle that might deter some players. Listen, I'm more of a hardcore gamer. I like depth and challenge, but in this case, I found narrative encounters surprisingly satisfying. I don't mind easier, more accessible fights, partially because the game also offers some tough and demanding encounters. These tougher encounters are the regular boss fights, which lack cinematic interruptions and proceed from start to finish without checkpoints. Few of those fights occur during main story progression, but most of them can be classified as side content. The first troll fight exemplifies this type of encounter. Trolls in general become one of the regular bosses to reappear during the adventure, along with ancients and late-game Valkyries. While reusing the same types of bosses usually could be frowned upon, God of War's developers show how it should be done. Each troll boss uses the same animation skeleton. They behave similarly and look similarly. They all use a basic attack pool. But each one of those bosses has also their own unique abilities. Fire Troll leaves flames after its attacks and can cause small explosions. This boss also prefers deadly jumping attacks that deal significant damage. Frost Troll, encountered in the caves under the mountain, spawns frost paths in front of him. Each troll looks distinct. Yes, they use the same base model, but it's not just a mere reskin. They use different clothing items and show significant visual differences from each other. This method efficiently reskins the same boss while making each fight feel unique. It also leads to a curious situation where the first trolls were the hardest for me. Each new troll becomes easier, even with few new abilities. That's because they still use a lot of previous attacks. This progression hardens the player and makes them into a troll hunter. Players know what to expect from this particular type of enemy. I really like it.
I think she knows we're here now. Hey, yes.
The same philosophy applies to Valkyries. While they look similar at first glance, closer inspection reveals different armor, wings, and very characteristic helmets. They also use various abilities from a broad pool of moves. The two Valkyries can even share the same moves, but with different timings. Valkyries are late game enemies, a side challenge for the strongest players. Their attack patterns can create deadly combos that catch unprepared players off guard. The attack strings coming one after another remind me of Dark Souls bosses, which for me is a high praise. Valkyries also tie perfectly into the narrative. Kratos and Atreus fight against cursed, corrupted husks of true Valkyries. They have to defeat them in order to free the true essence of the legendary female warriors. Corruption among the Valkyries might explain why there are so many Hellwalkers and Draugrs roaming the realms. Their inability to escort the dead warriors towards Valhalla led to Helheim overflowing with souls of the fallen, which in turn led to them coming back as Hellwalkers. In the end, it all makes sense. A beautiful integration of plot, gameplay and challenge. God of War employs a surprisingly narrow pool of side characters. Santa Monica Studio again prioritizes quality over quantity. Each character is distinct, well-defined and masterfully developed. These characters reappear throughout the story, each playing a significant role. Let's start with the dwarves, Brok and Sindri. These quarrelsome brothers work separately, yet from a gameplay perspective they fulfill the same role, shopkeeper and smith, allowing Kratos to upgrade his gear.
Always a pleasure. Now fuck right along.
Brok is a short-tempered, often rude and stubborn brother. He doesn't bite his tongue, often swearing profusely, but deep inside he genuinely cares about his estranged brother.
I can enhance her for you right now if it so pleases you, son of a bitch.
What the fuck?
So what say you? Ah!
You are right. I do not believe you. Come, boy.
There's a rune in the shape of a fork under the grip. No, digger beast, That was our brand, my brother and me, before we split. I got half of it right here, see?
Sindri, on the other hand, is more delicate and soft-spoken. He is the emotional brother, focusing on artistry and the ornamental elements of the craft. The two became rivals since they split. This rivalry becomes more of a running gag. As story progresses, it becomes clear that the two still care about each other. Atreus tries hard to reunite the dwarves. Their relationship becomes another family bond that could be repaired. The dwarves also offer a few side quests that further flesh out their story and explore the relationship between father and son. Witch of the Woods is another character who appears multiple times throughout the story. She resides in this fertile, magically enhanced garden, hidden beneath the huge turtle. She guides Kratos and his son several times, helping them achieve their goals. She takes a liking to Atreus, showcasing boy's gentle disposition, which makes it easier for him to establish contacts with other characters, something that is really hard for Kratos. The witch treats Atreus with almost motherly love, showing great care. Danielle Bisutti imbues this character with much needed warmth. Witch knows who Kratos is. It makes the Spartan instantly distrustful towards her. Still, she aids the duo in their endeavor. The witch's story arc is particularly significant to the plot, but I will explore it further in the spoiler section. Speaking of spoilers, there's one more very important character who appears in the game. A lore master who engages in funny and interesting disputes with Atreus and Kratos. A man of great wisdom who perfectly complements Atreus' curiosity. This individual will be fully covered in the spoiler section. The writers use every character to expand the lore and bring fresh elements to the narrative. Atreus' empathy and inquisitiveness become great tools in connecting with others. The boy's knowledge of Nordic myths, taught by his mother, proves useful during their journey. The child explains the legends and lore of the world, not only to Kratos but also to the players. It's a great way of refreshing your Norse mythology knowledge. Of course, don't take everything as gospel, because some facts have been altered to align with the game's story. Atreus likes to comment on found information. Not only does it provide us with his stance on the matter, developing his character, the disarming honesty of the child can be genuinely funny.
Oh, Thor must have smashed his head apart. See? But look, Hrungnir's body squished him. Idiot.
God of War offers few side quests adhering to the principle of quality over quantity. Kratos and Atreus complete favors for restless spirits and the dwarves. New tasks become available as the main story progresses. This way, developers can control the narrative within the favors. This approach is brilliant because it perfectly seizes every opportunity to explore character relationships. Kratos and Atreus discuss their findings and tasks.
That spirit,
The one whose mom was killed by Thor? What about him?
let his story be a reminder. The lives of men mean nothing to the gods.
I know, Father.
You know. But do you listen?
Yes.
Good.
Atreus wonders what could motivate the ghost to ask for help. Kratos, usually distrustful and reserved, uses side quests to explain different, harsh elements of life to his son in relation to their current task. It's impressive. Favors are treated as opportunities to flesh out characters, explore the game's lore, and teach valuable lessons. For instance, Brok asks the duo to find a ring in an abandoned mine. Kratos is reluctant, but Atreus convinces him to help the dwarf. The ring is partially absorbed by a huge stone elemental. Atreus is scared of the monster.
It's the ring! On that severed hand! Attached to the Soul Eater. Well, we know what happened to Andvari now. We can just go tell Brock. No need to fight it, right?
No. We will fight it.
But why?
Why?
Because you are frightened of it.
This is where the quest becomes intriguing for Kratos. Observing Atreus' angst and hesitation, Kratos sees a perfect opportunity to teach his son how to overcome fear. The side quest transforms into a valuable lesson on overcoming doubts and facing fear. And it also applies to the real-life scenarios. It illustrates how to help loved ones overcome their worries, by pushing them into uncomfortable territories while providing support. Kratos controls the experience by being there with his son. Together, Kratos and Atreus defeat the stone elemental. They do it together. Kratos ensures his son's safety, and as they conquer the monster, Atreus realizes that his fears can be overcome. It's his first step towards independence and gaining courage in similar situations. Atreus grows stronger from this experience. Another task sends Kratos and Atreus into a dwarven treasury, plundered by bandits. This is such a brilliant quest. While exploring Fafnir's storeroom, Kratos notices that his son lost focus again and seizes the opportunity to teach him.
They caught you off guard.
I wasn't expecting them.
Exactly.
In the main treasure chamber, they discovered that the river's chieftain was killed by his son, who stole the treasure for himself. This prompts Atreus to question who would kill their own father, a question that deeply affects Kratos, revealing his ongoing struggle with the past. The conversations during these favors often delve into philosophical topics. Atreus demonstrates his understanding of the world, characterized by empathy and sometimes naivety. Kratos uses these moments to teach his son the harsh realities of adulthood, emphasizing that while the world is beautiful, it is also dark and dangerous. Throughout their journey, Kratos sheds parts of his apathetic, harsh demeanor. He starts to behave like a true, caring father, albeit still with his stoic, collective personality. Atreus frequently seeks his father's approval after battles. It's clear that the child looks for appreciation and care. Initially, Kratos responds harshly, expecting more from the boy.
How was that? Did I help?
Of course
If
it
you want
is.
to help, distract them. Whoever is not my focus should be yours, but only when safe to do so.
But his attitude gradually changes. Atreus' efforts start to become adequate. By the end of their adventure, they fight as a formidable team, a nimble sharpshooter and a wrathful juggernaut. Kratos uses the world as his chalkboard. There is a lesson in almost every aspect of life, which is such a powerful message because it's true. In one of the favors, Kratos and his son help the ghastly crew members of a sunken ship find peace in death. The fallen captain cannot rest until his mates are saved. Kratos uses this situation to illustrate the qualities of a great leader to Atreus, drawing from both the captain's example and his own experiences as a Spartan commander. Another invaluable lesson.
Seriously? How did this one captain lead so many men?
He had their loyalty, so they followed.
And then they all died. He must have been a bad leader.
Why do you think that?
Well, he led all of these men to their deaths.
True, but these men chose to follow. Even good leaders make poor choices. The best take responsibility for them. Remember this.
Other favors further strengthen the bond between Atreus and his father. They encounter another restless spirit who tells them of a way to resurrect the dead. Kratos sees right through the apparition's lies, but Atreus, with his pure, hopeful soul, wants to believe that helping the ghost might allow them to speak to Atreus' mother again.
Father, maybe we should look for those bones.
Why?
Didn't you hear him? We could talk to Mom again. If we keep an eye out
Look
while
if you wish, boy. I will not be distracted by this fool's errand.
Pressured by his son, Kratos agrees to the task, which involves finding the bones of a deceased woman scattered around the Lake of Nine.
Trusting the spirit to keep its word is foolish, boy.
But if there's even a chance, don't you want to see Mom again?
Of course I... She is gone, Atreus. You must accept this.
I do, but to see her again. Just one more time.
Why do you believe him? You do not know him or who he was. All of this is sinister.
He wants to see someone he loved again. I understand how that feels. I don't think there's anything sinister about it.
Hope is blinding your instincts, boy.
Kratos knows it's a trap, but doesn't scold the boy. Instead, he calmly reminds Atreus not to get his hopes up and takes the opportunity to ask questions. One of them, very important. What would you say to your mother? I wasn't ready for this type of genuine insight from Kratos. He knows that the job is futile, he knows it's a trap, but he uses the occasion to ask questions. He asks for his son's motivations and thoughts. It opens up a really deep narrative path when Kratos stops assuming and starts listening. He wants to know what his son truly thinks. This is a simple yet profound lesson for any parent. Ask your child about things, get to know them better. Maybe you'll learn more about their thoughts, their inspiration, desires and goals. This is a mature approach to the topic. I wasn't lying when I said that the writing in God of War is impeccable. Not only does it feel natural, the conversations and the reasoning behind them are incredibly insightful. The writers avoid so many overused tropes and narrative traps. The story focuses on emotional needs of both Kratos and Atreus, showcasing their growth throughout the journey. The main story and writing behind every character in the game is emotionally mature. It made me wonder if either one of the writers had some background in psychology or had they consulted experts. The character motivations and behaviors are perfectly portrayed, making it truly impressive. Having discussed combat, exploration, characters, side content and story premise, it's now time to dive into the spoiler section. Spoilers. In this chapter I will delve into the main narrative of the game, discussing major events, boss fights and artistic choices. If you want to avoid spoilers, skip this section. Timestamps are provided in the description. Let's revisit the beginning of the story. After confronting the stranger, Kratos decides it's time to leave the house and fulfill the promise he made to his wife. He and Atreus embark on their journey, both emotionally unprepared, yet with no alternative.
Gather your things. We are leaving.
Thought I wasn't ready.
You are not. We have no choice now.
The relationship between father and son is strained and distant, with both still mourning their loss. During the initial steps of the journey, the game's subtle tutorialization continues. At the same time, Kratos tries to prepare his son for challenges ahead.
Look. All this time, there's been a protection stave around our entire woods. But the stave's broken there. Did you cut those down?
She had marked the tree she wished used for her pyre.
Why'd she do that?
The realization hits Kratos. His wife knew he will be internally afraid of the journey, so she forced his hand. The first tree Kratos cut down was marked. It held the protective barrier, hiding the household. This is why the stranger found Kratos. The writing, man, we are just at the beginning and it already justifies every event. No plot holes allowed. The game steadily introduces new enemies. In an act of carelessness, Atreus lands both himself and his father in trouble. Wait.
Father, help!
Hang on!
Hurry! I'm slipping!
Stay calm! Almost there!
Just grab him.
That wasn't so bad.
Slow down. Your haste will cost us.
Sorry.
Turn back.
More Draugr. But these aren't moving.
Stop moving,
dead?
dude!
I mean, more dead?
Boy.
Don't touch it!
Not dead, not dead!
This combat arena introduces the heavy Draugr variant. I died numerous times here, still adapting to God of War's combat system.
No! Don't leave me alone!
These tougher challenges are what I tend to remember most fondly. Harder encounters which took some time to beat, pushing me to learn and improve my skills. And just a side note, I know this whole event is scripted, but if that damned boy would have been a little bit more careful, we could have avoided dying over and over. Hear that, boy? The initial journey is highly linear. This way, developers control the flow of the experience and ensure players learn the mechanics, such as fighting higher level opponents. This way we arrive to the encounter with Reavers.
Oh, what's that smell?
Looks like a boss arena.
Are they Hellwalkers? They're untouched. Look!
Someone start the fires! Sigmund, your knives!
So many days without meat.
Meat? Wait, us?
Behind me.
What if they change like the others? We'll have to keep them alive. Strip off their meat. A little at a time.
This fight is mine alone.
Feels magic!
Mother! Help me!
Atreus!
This is the first time Atreus kills a human. The child is shaken. He was not ready for it, which stands at odds with his cocky attitude he presented moments before. This is what Kratos feared, the trauma of killing a man which forever takes away Atreus' innocence. The event marks the first time Kratos needs to become a father. He approaches it from the standpoint of a soldier, drawing from his past and his own experiences.
Close your heart to it.
He definitely cares for the boy, but lacks the ability to comfort his son, calm him down and take care of his emotions.
Find something to pull me up.
This interaction leaves Atreus clearly shaken, but Kratos deals with it surprisingly well.
You are in your head, boy. Let it go. He would have killed you.
Kratos explains his reasoning, which is one of the first instances of good, mature writing. He might not be the perfect, gregarious, empathetic person, but he knows that they can't stop now to give Atreus enough time to work things over in his head. Instead, he gives the boy enough guidance to hopefully help him cope with reality. It shows that, despite his harsh attitude, Kratos is still capable of compassion. He can explain his thoughts, which is so important in relationships. Do not assume, talk things over, explain your position on the matter. I think that's one of the most crucial elements of a healthy family. Despite his flaws and tendency to withdrawal, Kratos is able to convey his thoughts and arguments, which makes it possible for him to grow as a character. Kratos and Atreus reach a blocked bridge and meet Brock, the dwarven blacksmith.
What is this thing?
Can't get this slow-eyed cocklump to cross the bridge.
It's because she's scared of something in the trees over there.
There's what now?
His mouth got scared and doesn't want to cross the bridge. In a show of insightful empathy, Atreus calms the animal, realizing it's scared of something hidden in the bushes on the other side. Writers use this encounter to show Atreus' gifts. Brock, with his crude yet humorous demeanor, reveals that he and his brother crafted the Leviathan axe. He offers to upgrade it, hence cementing his role as the upgrade shopkeeper guy. The cave ahead leads to the mountain. This place is a huge puzzle. It also contains few secrets. I especially like the one where the ceiling, which is the main hazard in the puzzle, unlocks a secret floor once it drops. It's an example of creative level design and thoughtful use of resources.
Wow. Never been this close to the mountain before. Looks so big. Wish Mom was here to see it.
Yet again, the hesitation. Kratos is still not ready to embrace his emotions.
Hey, look at
Soon, Atreus and his father arrive to the first Sun Bowl puzzle.
that. Look, there are runes written along the side.
I want to use this conundrum to discuss puzzles in the game in general. Atreus uses his linguistic skills to decipher the puzzle. He also guides the player to the solution. The thing is that the bowl's riddle does not matter from the gameplay perspective. The answer will show up when the problem is solved. In case of puzzles, they fall victim to general simplification of the game. Every conundrum has to be accessible to the point where the majority of players can solve it without frustration. Especially if we are talking about puzzles gating main story progression. It leads to a point where most of the mysteries pretty much solve themselves.
Seems like maybe those rings should be turning.
Let's see here. First we need to find a spinning wheel. Hardly a conundrum. More like an exercise in perception. And what kind of an exercise it is when there's only one side path. Then players have to freeze gears so that the circles form a word. It's an easy puzzle and there are others which are even simpler. As I said, I know why Santa Monica Studio made this choice. God of War is supposed to reach the widest possible audience. I'll risk alienating some viewers. But in the age of TikTok, game puzzles have to be simple to match the mental capabilities of certain players. Especially right now, where a lot of people tend to get frustrated quite easily. In conclusion, riddles and puzzles in God of War are pretty easy. Developers place numerous failsafes to ensure that players will be able to solve them. I can understand this approach, but I enjoy more depth within game mechanics. Only one puzzle later in the game required real thought. More on that later. So we resume the hunt. Kratos wants to see if Atreus learned something during their journey. But first, another troll boss fight.
So,
Focus up, boy!
boss fight.
This troll teaches players that reskinned bosses might appear during journey, but they will use new attacks, expanding the scope of the fight.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's get some HP back.
With Troll dead, side activities done, we can resume the hunt. It's here that I realized how seamlessly the main quest changes, to push us towards the end goal without artificial busywork. The previous hunt ended with unsatisfactory results, so Kratos decides to train the boy and see if he learned anything. At the same time they still progress towards the mountain. Various narrative elements imperceptibly weave into one plotline. This principle stays true for the whole game. The writing proves brilliant both from the standpoint of exploring character motivations, showcasing their growth, and from the point of leading the general narration in an interconnected, seamless way.
Get after it then.
During the hunt, father and son become separated in dense fog, which leads us to the encounter with the Witch of the Woods.
We didn't know he belonged to anyone.
He doesn't. He's my friend.
The boy was following my command.
Then help fix this. Hold here, please.
The boar was enchanted. It was the last of its kind. The side story of healing the boar is just a background to the visual spectacle. It's also an opportunity for Atreus and his father to talk to other people. Atreus takes this opportunity gladly.
Rest now. I need 2 more things. Fresh red root grows just behind the house. Can you pull a cluster?
What else?
I know you're a god. Not of this realm, but there's no mistaking it. He doesn't know, does he? About your true nature? Or his own?
That is none of your concern.
The gods of these realms don't take kindly to outsiders, trust me. I know. When they find you, and they will, they'll make things difficult. The boy will want answers.
That will be my problem.
Whatever you're hiding, you cannot protect him forever.
This scene sets the stage for the future conflict. It shows one of Kratos' greatest insecurities. He is ashamed of being a god. He tries to hide it even from his own son, who in return doesn't even realize who he truly is. After healing the boar, the witch aids Kratos and Atreus.
You want solitude? This mark will hide you from those who might make your journey difficult. Nuina. Nuina.
Remember that scene, it will become important later. After encounter with the witch, Kratos and Atreus take a boat and move on with their journey. Another side note, the topic of Atreus' sickness keeps reappearing. At first I thought that it's such a cool detail. Young kids get sick all the time because their immune systems are just developing. I remember thinking this is such a cool detail, grounding the adventure in reality. Another thought to keep in mind for later. We end up in the middle of a huge lake. It's here that developers once again flex their creativity and create a spectacle to behold.
Hang on, boy! What is this?
It's the world serpent.
Stay calm, boy!
I am! This is great!
Sphinx?
Yeah! Mom said he's friendly!
What is it saying?
I don't know! That was amazing!
After that incredible presentation, we are welcomed to the first semi-open world segment. The bridge in the middle marks the main path to our goal, while all of the smaller islands, shipwrecks and beach sites mark the exploration opportunities. It's here that we find the first map of the buried treasure, or the first favor commissioned by the ghost. Wayward spirit quests acquaint players with the state of the world. The Desolation was an event in which people left this area of the world as it was deemed too dangerous to live. That's why there are barely any humans and most of the corpses are long dead. The other quest is a tale of a man who trusted Thor only to be deceived. Kratos uses this adventure to familiarize his son with his own hatred towards gods.
Father, why did the gods cause so much trouble for us?
Because that is their nature.
But with all that power, you would think at least some of them would try to make life better for people.
And yet, the gods continue to spread misery. This is life, boy.
In this first open world segment, players can also free their first dragon. It's a particularly tough endeavor as players have to fight self-regenerating Seidr rivers, while the dragon summons thunders all around the battlefield. Once freed, the beast leaves.
You're welcome!
After thorough exploration, I decide to move on with the main narrative. At the center of the Lake of Nine is Brok's shop. The dwarf gives a traveling stone to Kratos, which unlocks fast travel through the Mystic Gates. They can be unlocked during exploration. For now, the gates work mostly one way. You can easily return to Brok's shop at the center of the lake, but fast travel to other Mystic Gates is locked for now. Kratos and Atreus travel through the cave passage, continuing their journey to the mountain. Here we access a new type of terrain obstacle, totems spewing poison around them. The trick is to freeze them with Leviathan Axe in order to progress. Developers incorporate totems in few combat challenges and puzzles. On the other side of the tunnel resides Sindri, Brok's brother.
Another dwarf. Should we...
No. He is of no consequence.
Hi, excuse me, but, how did you come by that, axe?
That is my concern alone.
And, while I won't dispute that, I know that blade. It was one of ours, but,
The Leviathan Axe proves to be a great conversation starter. I like how the writers use dwarves' profound smithing knowledge and care about their craft to start interactions. The simple encounter reveals Atreus' mother knew the dwarves, solidifying the relationship between Kratos and them as his blacksmiths.
The blue one is your brother.
yes. Though my talents are vastly superior. No boast. I swear to Freya.
Do not undo his work. Improve upon it only.
The foothills area relies heavily on the poison totems as obstacles throughout exploration. It's also here where we start climbing the mountain. During the climb, Atreus and Kratos face off against their first ogre. I like how Kratos automatically puts his own arm in Beast's mouth to protect his son. It's a really nice touch showing fatherly love. After the encounter, they face yet another obstacle in their quest, the Black Breath.
Stay back, boy.
What is that?
We must find another way up.
The witch! Wish she was here. Bet she could get us past this.
My magic is useless against the Black Breath, and there's no way around it. Odin saw to that long ago.
What are you doing here?
Making sure you can finish your journey.
The witch offers her help, though she cannot dispel the magic herself. Instead, she offers to open a path to the realm of Alfheim, so that Kratos and Atreus can capture the Light of Alfheim, an artifact capable of breaking through the black mist. We return to the Lake of Nine with the witch. The bridge we discover not only connects the islands to the center of the lake, but also serves a bridge to other realms. From this point onward, the bridge functions as a hub area. Obtaining a specific key allows travel to other realms. Thanks to the witch, we have the key needed to visit Alfheim.
Welcome to Alfheim, gentlemen.
Alfheim is a truly spectacular zone. The designers outdid themselves with the visuals. Dense, lush foliage imbued with magic. It's a feast for the eyes, though even in paradise, darkness lingers.
We'll find what we need there. No. Damn it, not yet.
What's happening?
To restore the Bifrost magic, you must step into the light. But be very careful not to get caught.
And just like that, we are on our own. Despite its beauty, the area feels sinister. Developers introduce a new obstacle, which later integrates into puzzles. The pinkish roots. These roots coming from the same node must all be broken consecutively to prevent them from respawning. So the solution relies on proper positioning and perspective. Atreus uses his linguistic skills to learn about the lore of Alfheim. Meanwhile, Kratos tries to teach his son valuable lessons. The main enemy of Alfheim is revealed. Kratos and Atreus stumble into the final stages of war between Dark and Light Elves. The Dark Elves seemingly won, leading to the genocide of the Light Elves, the brutal aftermath of war. I love the design of the Dark Elves. They are nimble, vigilant fighters using spears and blinding projectiles. They can fly, requiring either Atreus' help or an axe throw to shoot them down. The main difficulty is pinning the damn things to the ground so they stop moving. Dark Elven soldiers are very fast enemies, introducing a new approach to combat. They require awareness and make the player appreciate crowd control skills. All of this makes finally catching them in an execution incredibly satisfying. The choice to incorporate insect-like wings and waspy behavior elements is a chef's kiss. It makes this rendition of Dark Elves in media stand out from others.
Did you say something?
No.
Oh, okay. At least we're getting closer to the light.
Such a good writing. Here I'm melting over the writing, praising the developers for including this seemingly simple story quip. I thought it just grounded the plot further by adding a small, seemingly meaningless incident that happens to so many of us in real life. I was wrong. It's the beginning of a side narrative where Atreus keeps hearing voices.
What'd you say?
I said nothing.
Really?
Okay.
He hears something. So that's a part of the narrative. Ooh! Ooh boy!
Wait, I could have sworn you said something.
What is it, boy?
Voices! You don't hear that?
I hear nothing.
It's going away now. It was screaming. Lots of voices. Angry. You really didn't hear that?
No.
The boy is overwhelmed by the sensation, which makes Kratos genuinely worried. It's yet another story element which strongly resonated with me. As a parent, it's incredibly scary to see something bad happening to your child and being powerless to stop it. Later, Atreus starts to distinguish his mother's voice from the noise in his head. Kratos tries to dismiss it, probably because he doesn't know how to address the issue. Together, the duo slay their way through hordes of dark elves. Atreus' empathy is highlighted as he tries to understand the conflict. Kratos doesn't care about it. He does not want to pick sides, just fulfill their goals and leave. As Kratos and Atreus get closer to the light source, the dark elf resistance grows stronger.
Another one!
Stay back.
The light!
Yes, we are near our goal, but we must be careful. Understand?
God.
Shit. Finally, we arrive to this great section where the duo reaches the dark elf nest. This place is terrifying. Designers creatively use enemies' wasp-like features to provoke the feeling of unease.
Let's dance, boys.
The frantic, adrenaline-pumping run through the gauntlet, defying the swarm, is such a well-executed segment.
What now?
Boy! Are you injured?
I'm fine. Wow. It's beautiful.
We need to just get into it, right?
The light. It's making the whole temple reappear. It's the source of all of it. Wait. It's singing.
Upon finally reaching the light of Alfheim, Atreus hears his mother singing. Kratos decides to enter the Pillar of Light.
Only use it as a last resort.
You're giving me your axe?
I'm letting you hold my axe. It is not a gift.
Still.
What is this? Faye?
It's unclear to me whether Kratos' experiences in the Pillar of Light are a form of self-reflection, or if Faye tries to show him how Atreus feels. One thing is certain, it's a very powerful scene.
He always leaves. He's never here. He doesn't want me and he never will. I don't know him and he doesn't know me. Doesn't seem to want to. I'm strong. I'm smart. I'm not what he thinks I am. I know better.
Kratos follows the light, growing hopeful to see his wife again. Just as he gets oh so close, he's abruptly taken back to the real world.
Wait! Come back! No! No! What have you done? Why did you do that?
I saved you! You were trapped in there! I waited, but you wouldn't come out! So I pulled you out!
Boy! I was gone only... moments.
No! You've been gone a long, long time! I didn't know what to do! You left me here! Again! Why don't you care?
This scene hit me hard. Just imagine slowly coming to terms with the death of a loved one, only to be given the possibility to see them one more time. Who wouldn't seize that opportunity? But then to be taken back when you are so close, it's cruel. So naturally, Kratos lashes out at Atreus. This is such a powerful scene. Kratos defeated, his grief reignited, his hopes briefly crushed again. He allows himself to be angry, but the anger is misdirected. On the other side there's Atreus, who proves himself as a capable fighter. The piles of bodies serve as testament to his fighting prowess. He was ready to make great sacrifices to defend his father, but then the thought that his father might have abandoned him broke the boy. This event rekindles old wars in both Kratos and Atreus. They are both justified in how they feel, they just need to understand each other. Kratos quickly regains focus and reverts to his soldier-like behavior, concentrating on the current situation and the task at hand. For now, he pushes his feelings aside. They are not safe yet. Kratos uses this newly acquired Light of Alfheim to upgrade Atreus' bow. Light arrows can be shot only on players' demand. They can be used both for exploration and combat. Shooting the arrows at blue crystals spawns light bridges. Kratos can also place blue crystals in specific spots to power mechanisms, unveil lore tablets or spawn tears. From now on, this mechanic will be used for traversals as well as puzzles. In combat, light arrows deal additional damage and significantly increase stun meter. After upgrades, light arrows also apply a weakening effect. Weakened targets deal less damage and receive more. This is a perfect type of ammunition for single stronger enemies and bosses. After restoring the light to Alfheim, the Light Elves return. Meanwhile, Kratos and his son try to find a way out through darkened underground passage. This is where the leader of the defeated Dark Elves attacks Kratos.
So we have a boss fight, right?
Although this is a main story boss fight, there are no cinematic intermissions and no checkpoints, making the encounter slightly harder. The Dark Elf leader uses various charge attacks. He is extremely nimble, making him difficult to hit. He also deploys blinding projectiles on the ground. Aggressive players must be cautious, as he can quickly set a trap under his feet and fly away, punishing attack spams. The boss gets more aggressive in the later stages of combat, relentlessly spamming abilities. If the player gets blinded, it's hard to dodge attacks. I would say in such cases it's best to run away and focus on dodging until you regain the full vision. Once you can see clearly, regroup and go back on the offense. After defeating the boss, Atreus gives Kratos attitude. The boy is unhappy with recent events. Kratos doesn't react properly.
Boy, read this. Boy, what's that say?
Only time you want to talk to me is when you need
Do you want to tell me something?
I said, the only time you care to talk to me is when you need me to translate for you. If Mom was here...
If your mother was still alive, we would not be here at all.
That's not the correct answer.
Atreus.
Forget it.
Right.
The writers once again show their class by actually resolving the conflict instead of artificially drawing it out for the sake of childish drama. Atreus and his father managed to talk things out.
So? Was she in the light?
Who?
You know.
Oh, she was not there.
Not like you would even care if she was.
Mind your tongue, boy! Until our journey is over, one of us must remain focused. Do not mistake my silence for lack of grief. Mourn how you wish. Leave me to my own.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
No. Why would you? You do not know my ways. I know it has not been easy. In the light, I felt only moments pass. If that is of some comfort to you.
That's good to know. Really.
It's impressive writing. So many TV series, shows, and even Hollywood movies desperately cling to drawn-out misunderstandings between main characters, overstretching it just for the sake of drama. In some cases, this becomes the entire plot of the movie. I never liked it. That's why I love what Santa Monica Studio did here. They gave Kratos and Atreus time to think, show the conflict, and then resolve it like mature, responsible people. Kratos was angry at Atreus for denying him the last chance to say goodbye, and Atreus who viciously defended his father, but later felt that Kratos didn't care about him. They talked things through, presented their arguments, which helped them understand each other. This is actual character growth. I love the maturity of the plot, avoiding trivial storytelling traps. It's also a lesson in relationships. If you need time, take it. But later talk to each other, explain your stance and feelings. Don't let this content linger. On the way back, Atreus explains that the voices he heard were not the first time he heard something others didn't. When Brok's mount was afraid of crossing the bridge, Atreus actually heard the animal say it was scared. This shows that Kratos' son is not only gifted in learning new languages, even the ones he just heard, but also has the ability to hear other beings. With the light of Alfheim, the duo can cross through the Black Breath and access the mountain caves. Here they must do some exploration, fighting and puzzle solving. After even more exploration and fighting, Kratos and Atreus reach a great cave with a mechanism that could unlock the lift. However, it's broken and requires further exploration. The corridors underneath the mountain are pretty sparse. Combat becomes another way to enhance character growth. Kratos starts to praise the boy for his efforts.
That was good, right?
I see improvement.
I see improvement.
After unlocking the lift, the duo is attacked by another troll, this time an ice variant. This is a perfect moment to showcase the changes in troll variants. They look similar, fight similarly, but each one has some distinct features. I love this approach to reskinning enemies. At this point I was a pretty good troll slayer, so this boss fight ended quickly. Another example of bonding occurs in higher parts of the mountain corridors. Atreus finds an old lantern of the giants.
A giant's prayer. They're asking their ancestors to watch over them, to guide them home.
Boy.
Wait. I think I know how it works. Watch.
Finally, Kratos touches the boy, almost hugging him. We can see the bond between father and son finally shaping.
What did you write?
I asked them to watch over Mother. Do you think they'll watch over us on the way to the top?
Come, boy. It is a long way up.
After the trap gauntlet, Kratos and Atreus use the mining lift to reach the top. This area serves as a combat arena, with waves of enemies dropping from heights to ambush the two. It's a dynamic place to fight. Players can use the lift's ledges to throw down opponents. This segment transitions into the dragon encounter.
We're almost at the summit. Nothing's gonna stop us.
Calm yourself, boy,
Fuck.
and stay behind me.
Yes, sir!
Ooh, that's the boss.
Here we go!
Kratos slices the dragon's claws to drive the beast away. This is yet another highly cinematic and dramatically dynamic segment, something Santa Monica Studio excels at creating. The grounded camera shines in these moments. Finally, the dragon lets go, and the two climb higher as the damaged leaf falls down.
Hold on!
I go tam.
That was intense.
Unfortunately, the enraged dragon finds Sindri in a mountain opening.
It's Sindri. Can you kill something that big?
If we can catch it off balance.
Atreus instinctively wants to save the dwarf. Kratos is more cautious, not wanting to risk their lives.
We have to help him.
Break right. Find an angle. Wait for my mark.
Thank you.
So, here we start the dragon boss fight. This is a highly cinematic encounter, the narrative boss fight separated by cutscenes. The huge dragon towers over Kratos, but he has fought bigger foes. If you had already saved the dragon, you'll be familiar with some of the beast's attacks. I just have to interrupt here. Did you catch Kratos' automatic, instinctive save of his son? I love it. That's father's instincts. During the fight, developers go all out with intense, spectacular visuals. In the regular parts of the fight, Kratos avoids lightning strikes, dragon claws, breath attacks and shockwaves. You can try to chip away boss health bit by bit, but the mechanic introduced earlier, throwing the red sap at electrified surfaces, which in this case is the dragon's skin, causes an explosion that brings dragon's head down. This way, Kratos can deal more damage. The checkpoint system definitely makes the fight more manageable. Having to redo the whole experience would be daunting.
Father, get up!
This is a long fight. It also exemplifies why checkpoints are so useful during those cutscene-heavy fights. They don't force you to redo all the stages. Even the most visually impressive fight could get boring after continuous failed tries. Great design choice. The two work together to bring the dragon down, presenting the first narrative and combat examples of synergy between father and son.
Run.
I have a plan. Be ready to lower the crane on my mark.
How this thing works?
I do not care. Be ready. Now!
Wow, we actually did it. And you!
But nobody's killed a dragon for hundreds of years. Not since the grand culling of the worms. And unless I'm mistaken, you did all that for me.
You are mistaken. The dragon was simply in our path, nothing more.
Sindri, in a show of gratitude for saving his life, presents Atreus with mistletoe arrows. He also enhances Atreus' bow with the power to summon shock arrows, lightning-infused special arrows that can be used like the light arrows. Players can switch between two arrow types and use them on command. Shock arrows can be used for exploration, by blowing up red sap which obstructs areas and treasures. They are also very useful in combat as shock arrows build up a shock charge that can then hold enemies in place, making them vulnerable. Upgrading the skill will also cause the lightnings to travel around enemies, making it exponentially potent against groups of enemies. The developers use the tunnel ahead to teach players how to use the arrows. Finally, we reach the summit. Kratos notices that his son's bowstrap was damaged during the fight against the dragon. He repairs it with the mistletoe arrowhead.
Pain we endure. Faulty weaponry we do not. This will do for now. Good?
Good.
This detail will be important later. While climbing the mountain, the duo discovers that it's home to Mimir, the smartest man alive. Mimir is interrogated by the stranger from the beginning of our journey. The mysterious man is confirmed to be Baldur, the immortal god. He is accompanied by Thor's sons, Magni and Modi. Together they search for Kratos.
Ah, the very topic of conversation. A tattooed man traveling with a child.
Boy, check their path. Make sure we're all alone.
But we just saw them leave.
Do as I say.
Alistair Duncan, the voice of Celebrimbor, is perfect in this role. He announces bad news to the duo. This is not the highest peak in all the realms. In a true Mario move, you came to the wrong castle. Kratos and Atreus have climbed the wrong mountain. The true highest peak in all the realms is in Jotunheim, the only realm that cannot be accessed from the temple at the center of the Lake of Nine. Fortunately, Mimir proposes a way to unlock the passage. But first he wants to travel with us. He wants Kratos to behead him and then resurrect his head with the help of the witch in the woods.
What do we do?
Yes!
First, you need to cut off my head.
Wait, what?
Odin made sure that no weapon, not even Thor's hammer, could free my body from these bonds. But fortunately, you don't need my body. The trick is, we need to find someone who can reanimate my head using the old magic.
Old magic. There's a witch of the woods. She knows the old ways.
And she'll help. She might do worth a try.
But if she fails, he will be dead.
He tortures me, you know. Every day, brother. Odin himself sees to it personally, and believe me, there is no end to his creativity. Every single day. This isn't living.
He tortures me, you know, says Mimir, delivered with such sincerity and deeply hidden sadness. It got me good. Alistair Duncan is incredibly gifted. Mimir, this bright, witty man, hides a great amount of pain. So even death or living as a head without body means freedom. Before Kratos chops off Mimir's head, the man talks about Atreus.
In case he can't resurrect me, there's something you need to know. The boy. The longer you wait to tell him his true nature, the more damage you do. He will resent you, and you may lose him forever.
There is much about me I would not have him know.
Kratos reveals his insecurity. He is ashamed of his past, afraid to let his son know about the heinous deeds he's done, as well as his origin and the fact that they are both gods. After chopping off Mimir's head, the two travel to Witch's hideout.
It's so good to see you again. I knew you weren't dead.
Hello.
Oh, can you bring a head back to life?
In a surprising turn of events, the witch becomes almost hostile towards Atreus when he sees mistletoe arrows. She burns the arrows, gives the boy new ones, and comes back to her senses. Kratos asks her to revive Mimir's head.
Do you have any idea who this is? Did you kill him?
At his request. He claimed you could revive him.
Me? Are you sure you heard him right?
After a particularly nasty ritual, Mimir is brought back to life. It turns out Mimir already knows Witch, who is actually Freya, the goddess.
That's enough.
It worked!
Let me see him. Mimir? You there?
Yes.
Good.
Oh. Hello, Freya. Been a long time.
This makes Kratos uneasy. He doesn't trust gods and feels deceived again. The two leave immediately. From this point onward, Mimir becomes the permanent third member of the party. He often breaks the silence during traveling, especially while sailing, offering interesting stories about the lore of Norse gods and myths. This makes him such a perfect fit for Atreus, who loves this kind of stories. Atreus is hungry for knowledge and Mimir loves to share it.
I'm glad you asked, actually. I have just the story for you. There was a giant once named Thamur. A very giant, who, despite his mountainous size, was without question the greatest stonemason this world had ever seen.
This way traveling becomes interesting, as Mimir has plenty of stories to tell. Sometimes Kratos tries to interject and offer some teachings. Witty, knowledgeable and talkative Mimir becomes a colorful part of the adventure. He often provides funny quips and banter, sometimes stepping in to resolve the conflicts between Kratos and Atreus or offer advice. His stories are not only interestingly written, but the anecdotes and the way Mimir tells them make them memorable. At the same time, game finds yet another way to familiarize players with Norse mythology. Mimir wants to talk to Jormungandr, the giant snake. But before doing that, I took a small detour to explore Muspelheim. You see, after finding 4 particular chests, Atreus can learn to speak the tongue of Muspelheim, a great way of incorporating narrative elements with gameplay and exploration. Muspelheim is a small realm. It's a rocky volcanic area with few combat arenas. This is challenging ground. Each encounter is a challenge with different set of rules. Defeat all enemies without getting hit, kill the monsters before the timer runs out, or defeat all of the smaller creatures to be able to damage the bigger guy. The challenges become progressively harder with monster levels gradually increasing. This means that players are not supposed to complete the whole zone the first time they visit. The later challenges are reserved for the endgame. Muspelheim's challenges offer their own set of resources. Kratos can buy armor pieces and upgrades themed after this volcanic area. Later, after beating every trial, players can rerun chosen challenges and farm resources this way. Okay, back to the main plot. With Mimir's help, we summon the World Serpent.
Why is he doing that?
Odin had that statue made in honor of Thor. And seeing as the world serpent absolutely abhors the fat dauber, he was probably sick of looking at it.
But doesn't that hurt?
Well, he and Thor have a bit of an unpleasant history between them. Or they will, anyway. So I guess waking up to see it was worse than the thought of lumps of solid stone passing through his gullet. You want me to ask him?
No. Our only concern is Jotunheim.
The serpent reveals that to access Jotunheim, we need to learn the travel rune and obtain the magic chisel. After Jormungandr changes position, the water in the lake drops again, unlocking another slew of islands and additional zones to explore with new favors to complete. This time favors focus on the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. I already talked about them in Quest and Characters segment. After a long detour exploring all of the new islands and freeing my second dragon, I decided it's time to look for the chisel. Fortunately, Mimir knows where it is. We sail to Thamur's corpse, the giant slain by Thor. Just the introduction to this zone is both impressive and menacing at the same time.
Thor killed him. Oh no. He fell in a village?
Aye.
Here we encounter a new enemy type, Wolvar. These wolf-like bipedal creatures are very aggressive and deal a lot of damage. The obvious window to strike back appears during their transformation. After growing spikes, Wolvar are all offensive. Thamur's corpse showcases great environmental design as Kratos and Atreus travel around frozen body parts of the dead giant. The zone offers impressive visuals.
There he is.
Find the tip of that chisel. That's the magic we need.
The great hammer towering the frozen lake becomes the key to reaching our goal. The tip of the chisel is hidden deep beneath the ice, so crushing the thick frost layer is necessary. Thamur's bird, fingers and braids become the obstacles in reaching the objective. This area hosts some tough fights, such as Wolvar ambush where two ogres join the fray or the first encounter against shielded traveler. It's here, in this unwelcoming environment, that Kratos changes his tune for the first time, complimenting Atreus during combat.
Nice shot.
When the two reach the top of the hammer, Kratos uses his godly strength to drop it down. I think it's the only time when Santa Monica Studio overdid a scene. Kratos unnecessarily endangers Atreus by going down with the giant weapon.
How do we get down?
We jump.
Really?
Really?
Come.
Isn't it unnecessarily dramatic? Over
Do not
dramatic?
panic.
Why would I panic?
I have you.
You're cracked, you know that?
Well. Good. We should keep moving.
It's very out of character for him. Usually collected and thoughtful Kratos chooses a risky solution just for the sake of looking cool. The safer way would have been to stick to the mountain and carefully go back down. This scene definitely looks impressive, but in my opinion it's unnecessary and goes against Kratos' values.
The chisel tip.
Give the man credit. He has a talent for destroying things.
Remember that head.
Never leaves my mind.
The chisel gets uncovered. During approach, Kratos and Atreus hear the two sons of Thor arguing. It's a sign of an impending boss fight.
Hurry, brother. We may get a piece of the chisel and be gone before they even notice. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Boy,
That's a big dude.
Surrender. The All-Father demands it.
no.
Good.
This fight is mine, boy. Go.
And where do you think you're going? Oh no, brother. The little freak's got a bow. What are we
Ornstein and
gonna
Smaug.
do?
A cool detail. Both brothers, Magni and Modi, are voiced by industry voice acting legends, Troy Baker and Nolan North. This is a narrative boss fight, so it offers checkpoints. The regular part of the encounter pits Kratos against the two brothers. The player has to pay attention to both of them as they use different attacks. Splitting them proves to be a reliable strategy. Magni is easier to bring down as he wields a two-handed heavy sword. Modi hides behind a shield, so player has to either dodge the attack first or parry it to open the boss for damage. The phase changes when both brothers' HP falls below certain threshold.
Stay behind me, boy.
The intermission phase tests Kratos and Atreus' cooperation skills. Everything turns dark, and the two brothers charge at Spartan and his son from different angles. The view of Kratos defending his son feels deeply uncomfortable. Will I react in time to protect the child? After the intermission phase, the fight continues. The brothers use more advanced skills. Then we have yet another dark segment followed up by the last combat phase. Magni and Modi clearly don't take Kratos seriously. They treat the encounter more as a brawl, a way to challenge themselves. They like it. They are bullies who love to fight, which is why they fight also with words. Modi belittles Kratos and especially Atreus, trying to throw them off, making them lose focus and become emotional.
Don't talk about my mother!
Don't talk about my mommy.
This way Modi causes his opponents to make mistakes.
Okay.
My sons are welcome to try.
Mother must have been some whore to make the light in.
I'll kill you!
Atreus! Control yourself!
The brawl comes to a stop when Kratos kills Magni. You can observe that Modi never thought they could lose.
Agni! No! How did you... You have no idea. You son of a bitch!
Sickness. Fever has returned.
No! It hasn't.
Roy!
The coffin, the blood. The boy's sick, he needs Freya.
No!
Steady.
I'll be alright.
There you go, lad.
The chisel becomes not only a narrative device but also opens hidden chambers locked behind those weird glassy mirror doors. Even here, developers insist on introducing a small interactive segment to break the glass. Okay, it's here. This sheer focus on player engagement is commendable. From now on, players can unlock hidden chambers, inviting them to return to previous zones. Those zones usually contain some additional loot. They are also prison cells for corrupted Valkyries, perfectly exemplified by the hidden doors we unlocked through the main story progression. Such thoughtful design.
I think she knows we're here now. Hey,
Valkyries are the endgame enemies. They are quite difficult, able to quickly use abilities one after another, chaining them into deadly combos. Players have to learn and recognize their attack patterns to effectively fight them. Valkyries use the regular boss fight template without any checkpoints. They are supposed to be the pinnacle of combat challenges. This fight was hard, and it took me a lot of tries to get it right. But I'm stubborn, so I finally managed to defeat my first Valkyrie.
You have freed me from my corrupted form. You have my eternal gratitude. But my sisters remain trapped as I was. Take my helm. Find them. Free them. The fate of the Valkyries rests on your shoulders.
Mimir wants to search for Jotunheim rune in Tyr's vault. Tyr was the Norse god of war and a traveler beloved by the giants. Tyr is long dead, but he left behind a magnificent storeroom hidden beneath the bridge at the center of the lake. The chisel opens the way to the vault. Mimir explains that Tyr was beloved by many races, giants included.
Loved by everyone, including the giants.
Only Tyr and Mimir were gifted by the giants with special sight. Atreus invites his father to the Sand Bowl. The boy wants to teach Kratos how to read signs, a beautiful example of their strengthening bond.
It won't be that hard.
I know how to read, boy. Just not this tongue.
You're halfway there already then. Okay, so the runes represent a lot of different things. Some gods, some animals.
Wait.
Some... Oh, am I going too fast? Sorry.
Not that. Do you smell something?
Yeah, I do. Smells like... rain?
You ruined everything! I earned that fucking hammer! But now, everyone's gonna think I only got it because Magni's gone! It'll be a joke! But if I kill you, no one's gonna laugh at me! Oh, are you dumb? That your father's doing? Or did you get it from your mum? She's stupid and ugly.
Shut up! You don't know anything about my mother.
Oh, it's true. But I'm gonna get to know you really well. You're gonna be my new brother. Right after I finish killing your father! Whoops. I think I broke him. Oh, no. Stay back! No! No! This isn't over!
Brother, the boy.
Atreus.
Atreus' illness returns. Kratos rushes to Freya as she is the only one able to heal the boy. This is the first time we see a panicked Kratos, overcome by fear.
Open the door! We need your help! Woman, do you hear me?
In order to cure Atreus, Freya needs the heart of the gatekeeper from Helheim, the realm of the dead. She sends Kratos to recover the heart while she cares for Atreus. Freya warns Kratos that his frost axe won't work against Hell's monstrosities. He needs a new weapon. This forces Kratos to rush to his ruined home and recover the parts of his past. On his way back home, Kratos is haunted by illusions of Athena, the personification of his guilt. No matter how deep he tried to hide his past, right now he is forced to embrace it and uncover the most cruel part of his previous life, the Blades of Chaos. His iconic weapons from past games, gifted to younger Kratos by Ares himself. The same blades that were used to slay gods and thousands other beings. This is the part of his life he swore to forget, banish into non-existence, but right now, however painful, it's the only way to save his son. It shows how much Kratos is ready to sacrifice to save Atreus. There is such a powerful message hidden in here. Even in our past mistakes, we can still find knowledge, hope, skills that can be later applied for good.
There's nowhere you can hide, Spartan. Put as much distance between you and the truth as you want. It changes nothing. Pretend to be everything you are not. Teacher, husband, father. But there is one unavoidable truth you will never escape. You cannot change. You will always be a monster.
I know. But I am your monster no longer.
All right, brother. Let's see what those blades can do.
The Blades of Chaos are incredibly satisfying to use, with wide attacks perfect for groups of enemies.
AoE!
Damn! I deliberately skipped this weapon in combat and progression segment. Obtaining Blades of Chaos is such an important, sad and dire scenario. It shouldn't be spoiled. With new weapon comes a completely fresh skill tree. It works the same as previous branches, focusing on active skills that provide meaningful changes to the flow of combat. I really liked when games introduce new progression systems in the middle of the playthrough. It refreshes the experience.
Friggin' new skills. Mid-game. Nice. I love when games do that. You think you have everything figured out, and voila! Completely new stuff. Awesome.
The Blades of Chaos are based on fire damage. While Leviathan Axe adds frost damage, the Chained Razors build up the burn meter, setting enemies ablaze. This weapon unlocks its own light and heavy runic attacks. It's also the final exploration upgrade. The Blades of Chaos can burn the blue vines that obstruct some paths and treasures. They can also carry the green flame from the small golden spheres to other ones. Finally, the player is able to complete all of the puzzles. Armed with the Blades of Chaos, Kratos travels to Helheim. The Realm of Death is a land bound by ice. The greenish filter adds this weird, eerie, unsettling feel to it. Kratos follows the spirits of the dead to the end of the bridge. Here, the Keeper awaits.
The Bridge of the Damned. And there's the Keeper, making sure the dead are really dead.
What is that he holds?
That totem contains a powerful source of magical energy, the very power of Helheim itself. But what you want is his heart. Just take it and we can leave.
How?
Start some trouble. You can do that, right?
So another troll, huh?
The troll model is reused yet again, but just as its skin is significantly changed, so are its attacks. The boss uses new vicious attack patterns, vanishing after each strike and changing position. The deceptive teleports increase the difficulty of the encounter. Players have to rely on their perceptiveness. It's also harder to reliably deal damage to the boss as it is only visible mostly during attacks. The regular encounter phases are interrupted by the intermission segments. The boss teleports to one corner of the arena and spawns very wide magic waves rushing at the player. There are few clear spots so the player can advance through the waves. Unfortunately, the whole mechanic gets devalued as it's easier to avoid the waves by simply running around the edges of the combat arena. In the later phases, the Keeper can also summon adds. And oh my god, what is that? This ominous bird-like creature towers over the whole area, silently watching. It definitely caught me off guard. It looks menacing. Developers added checkpoints to this fight, so even if you fail, just like I did, you can easily get back on track.
No!
Well, this is a fine mess!
You see?
After dealing with the Keeper, Kratos harvests the heart. Even in here, in the realm of the dead of Norse mythology, his past haunts him.
I have the heart. I need nothing more.
You're set. Better not to linger here, though, eh?
Kratos. Zeus.
Zeus?
My father.
Your father was Zeus? Well, that explains a lot.
What is that place?
Never go there. Understand?
During their travel back to Atreus, Mimir confronts Kratos about his past.
But you really can't stay away from them, can you?
You must say nothing to the boy. He must never know.
Bollocks, brother. Respectfully, bollocks. He has to know. He'll never be whole without the truth. Look, I I get it. You hate the gods, all gods. It's no accident that includes yourself. And it includes your boy. You see that? He feels that. He can't help what he is. He can't begin to help it because you haven't even told him. It's all connected, man.
You will tell him nothing.
This is such a great way for the writers to use Mimir as the insightful, helping voice. He uses his deep knowledge of the world to explain to Kratos what's the issue. Kratos arrives with the heart. We can see him in his most vulnerable state, afraid for the well-being of his child.
Back of your hand.
To fully defeat the illness, Kratos must tell the boy who both of them really are. He needs to strip his pride and uncover his greatest insecurities. Meanwhile, Freya opens up about her own son.
Did I tell you that I have a son too? It's been forever since I last saw him. At his birth, the runes foretold a needless death. The babe in my arms was so small, so helpless. I knew right then I would do anything to protect him, no matter the sacrifice. Of course, everything I did for myself. I let my needs, my fears, come before what he needed. And I couldn't see his resentment until it was too late. Don't make the same mistake. Have faith in him. I know the truth isn't simple, but nothing is when it involves your child.
Freya's story deeply resonates with Kratos. She made her own parenting mistakes. In her blind chase for her son's well-being, she hurt him, turning him away. This is an important lesson. Overprotective parents tend to rashly provide everything for their kids, fulfilling all of their needs, even the non-existent ones. They assume they know best what their child needs. In actuality, fulfilling their own ambitions, protecting mostly themselves and their own interests. Let me give you an example that may or may not be something that I actually saw. A family sends their 10-year-old daughter to the best school in the area, where it takes 1.5 hours each day to get to school, the same amount of time to come back home. So the girl has to wake up early, travel to school, after which she attends additional activities chosen by her parents, just to come back home after dark, do her homework, go to sleep, then start it over the next day. This is a modern-day example of overprotective parents trying to prepare their child for the future, meanwhile taking away their daughter's childhood. Parents have this tendency, assuming what's best for their children, forgetting kids have their own interests and wishes. Of course, they are not always realistic, but the most important lesson is to talk to your kids, listen to them, propose a solution that will work for both of you. Expand their scope of activities instead of forcing the ones you like. Maybe they'll find something they are passionate about. I really wish, when the time comes, I'll be able to recognize the situation and listen to my son, instead of passing my own ambitions onto him. Wow, that was a rant. That's a good lesson.
It is a curse. The boy has been cursed.
Kratos perceives being a god as a curse. For him, it's a source of shame.
Don't leave without me.
I will not.
While preparing to sail away, Atreus confronts his father about parts of the conversation he overheard.
Are you not better?
I guess.
I know you overheard my talk with Freya. You think you understand, but you do not. Why do you say nothing?
You said I was cursed. You think I'm weak because I'm not like you. I know I was never what you wanted. But after all this, I thought maybe things were different.
You do not know everything, boy.
No. But at least I know the truth now.
Look how hurtful it is for Kratos to realize that all this time his son got everything wrong. Why wouldn't he? Atreus had to operate on misguided assumptions because Kratos was so secretive. Yet another reason to base relationships on truth and overcome the hurdles together. The Spartan finally decides to reveal the truth to Atreus.
I'm a god, boy. From another land far from here. When I came to these shores, I chose to live as a man. But the truth is, I was born a god. And so were you. Boy, have you nothing to say?
Can I turn into an animal?
Can you turn into an animal?
Atreus is fascinated by his godhood, while Kratos perceives it as a burden. It's clear that Atreus doesn't see it the same way.
Nature.
I'm a god.
This is a great moment for completionists to finish clearing the map. With every exploration mechanic unlocked, players can access almost all there is in the game's world. After doing so, I returned to the Temple of Tyr. This time Kratos and Atreus managed to use the Sand Bowl. This exact Sand Bowl puzzle presents how meaningless it is. The answer to the riddle is written on the wall next to the bowl. What the hell?
Read it.
Death itself I swallow, to spring forth life tomorrow.
Oh, I like that one. I wonder if I wrote it.
Earth. Come on, that's Earth.
Is that the answer there?
It says Earth.
Swallows death, brings forth life.
The descent into the depths of Tyr's temple becomes the lore lesson about Tyr's deeds. At the same time, Atreus comes to terms with his godhood. The center chamber of the temple presents a spectacular use of light and shadows. The visuals are truly impressive. The temple becomes a mix of short puzzles, environmental obstacles, sprinkled with a lot of brutal trap gauntlets.
Okay. Got it.
In one of the chambers, Kratos and Atreus find stored treasures belonging to other parts of the world. Kratos finds a bottle of Greek wine and a vase reminding him of his past. There is still a part of his life that his son doesn't know. Kratos is ashamed of his brutal, rageful ways and the fact that he killed Zeus, his own father. After a few combat challenges and even more trap gauntlets, Kratos falls into another kind of trap.
The rune stuff. It's lowered. What's going on?
Trap!
Father!
Boy, get out of here!
I'm fine. How do we get you out?
Pull chains on the wall.
This is the only puzzle that actually needed
The
thinking.
middle.
Bam. Come on. This one goes up, and we have it. That's it.
Did it!
Well, can't drown. Guess that's something.
We're not stopping! Wait! What's that big chain for? Father, above you!
I cannot throw. I cannot throw.
Boy, you have to stop that chain.
Ow!
I do not know.
Atreus sacrifices his mother's knife in order to save his father. A subtle commentary that by lingering in the past, you can easily lose the present. the Jotunheim rune is accessible. Atreus realizes that the protection sign given to them by Freya has rubbed off. The two are potentially vulnerable to being found by Norse gods.
Boy. Here. On the day you were born, I made 2 knives, mixing metals from my home and from this land. One for myself, and when you were ready, one for you. Today is that day.
So I'm a man now, like you?
No. We are not men. We are more than that. The responsibility is far greater. And you must be better than me. Understand? Say it.
I will be better.
The power of this weapon, any weapon, comes from here. But only when tempered by this. By the discipline, the self-control of the one who wields it. That is where the true strength of a warrior lies. You must never forget that. Good then. Come.
Dream.
Blank.
Wait!
Oh shit.
The rune! Did you see it?
Yes!
Are you certain?
I got it! Trust me!
Good then. Aim for the face.
At this point, troll bosses are nothing particularly scary, so even when the game throws 2 at you at the same time, it doesn't matter. The fight is still pretty easy. At least the trick with taking out the light increases the difficulty a little bit and introduces a thriller undertone to the encounter. Okay. By the way, that's some good visuals. Atreus slowly starts to show too much pride. Being a god reflects on his behavior. One last shot.
He was big, but no match for us gods.
I have beaten bigger.
Going back up, Kratos and Atreus share a moment over old Greek wine. Through a better understanding of each other, they slowly become equals.
Father, why did you leave your home and come here? Does it have to do with the other gods there? It's just, you hate the gods so much. But Tyr proves that gods can be good. And you're good. You only killed those deserving, right?
And just as they were getting somewhere, Kratos again denies truth to his son. The child immediately jumps to problematic conclusions.
Yes.
Ah, but who's worthy enough to judge?
Quiet head, we are. We know better.
Huh? Sounding more like your da by the moment.
Kratos doesn't correct the boy's behavior. During their second approach to the mountain, Atreus becomes enamored with his feeling of superiority. The child gets insufferable. Yet Kratos does nothing. His misguided feeling of being better than others leads to him lashing out at Sindri.
Oh, I can tell you a thing or two about family matters.
Let me guess. Your brother isn't as talented as you, and his work is junk.
Those things are accurate. Your point?
It's all you ever talk about, over and over. Do something about it or shut up already.
I see.
Yeah! We're sick of hearing about little people's little problems!
All right. That hurt a little. Let's have a look at your gear then.
Kratos again does nothing. It gets to the point where Atreus loses control and insults his own mother.
After the way you spoke of her, I question that.
What? That she wasn't a god?
She was better than a god. And
Atreus clearly has problems coming to terms with understanding godhood. All his life he was fed the narrative that all gods were evil. Right now is the time when he needs guidance. He talks about his thoughts, yet Kratos rarely engages in conversation.
You and Mother always said all gods were evil. But we're not. Tyr wasn't. Freya neither. The Aesir gods, that's who's evil. And you know what? Odin's right. We are a threat. Because we know what they are and we know we can beat them.
Well, not all of them. Not yet.
Magni did his worst, and he's dead. They're no better than us, and they're gonna be sorry they picked this fight.
It all leads to the climax where they meet Modi again, this time badly beaten by his father Thor.
Thor! Blame me! Me! For what you did to Magni. My own father called me a coward.
Looks like he did more than that. Move it, or we'll pick up where he left off.
I'll kill you.
no. He is beaten. Not worth killing.
He should pay for what he said about Mother.
I said no.
But we're gods. We can do whatever
No.
we want.
Atreus' misguided anger and feeling of superiority lead to him killing Modi. It goes against Kratos' teachings, so he finally reacts, but it's too late.
This is a much better knife than Mother's.
You killed against my wishes. You lost control.
Haven't you been teaching me to kill?
I've been teaching you to survive. We are gods, boy.
Atreus tries to understand the conflicting signals his father sends, but Kratos is unwilling to fully open up. He is still not ready to share the whole truth, which could help Atreus finally understand the situation. It leads to the conflict between the two.
Nobody cared about him anyways. What's the difference?
There are consequences to killing a god!
Why? How do you know? How do you know?
Watch your tone, boy.
Atreus grows resentful towards his father. He suspects that Kratos still hides details about his past, not willing to share. The anger brews within the boy, making him even more insufferable than before. The rest of the climb becomes an ordeal.
Boy.
Don't you sigh at me. Kratos hides the truth. In doing so, he spares mostly himself. The shame wins. How to deal with kid who's turning into a brat?
I can't learn if you won't teach me.
You do not heed my lessons.
I've done everything you asked, and all I wanted was the truth. Where did you get your fire? Why did you hide them? You said there are consequences to killing a god. You used the blades to kill one. Who else did you kill? Before Magni? How many? Do you hear me?
I heard you, and these are not subjects for discussion. Do not push me, boy.
Fine.
Atreus pushes his father relentlessly, hoping to find any answers. Kratos is unyielding, and conflict between the two keeps growing.
Come on, you two. The silence is getting unnerving.
Don't worry about it. We're focusing.
After a long and painful climb, Kratos and Atreus finally reach the summit. Just as they are about to cross the gate to Jotunheim, they are attacked by Baldur.
Beautiful, isn't it? Why, I remember once... Brother, look out!
Okay, I was waiting for you.
Run, boy! Cross the bridge!
No! I'm a god too! I can do this! Get off him!
Really?
Baldur, let him go! Take me instead, I'll do whatever you...
Shut up! All this time I thought I needed you! But you're just meat. Turns
Come on,
out
Kratos.
the boy's the brains.
In the heat of battle, they destroy the gate. Atreus is too full of himself, overconfident, and doesn't want to back down. In a culmination of anger, he stops listening to Kratos, which leads to everything falling apart.
No! You broke the gate! That was our only way to Jotunheim!
Stupid son of a bitch!
Get out of here, boy.
Yes, by all means, Junior, run away. Let Daddy do all the heavy lifting for you.
Let me go!
Calm down, boy. You are not ready for this.
I am ready!
Boy,
And here I thought my family was fucked up. Oh, your father is right, boy. You are far from ready. Now would you be so kind as to hold this for me? Thank you.
No.
Atreus!
Here we enter a spectacular cinematic cutscene where Kratos fights Baldur atop of a flying dragon. The dramatic clash of two gods fighting against each other is truly epic. Even here, during this highly scripted cinematic event, the developers still try to actively engage the players, incorporating this dodge block attack minigame. Look at detail, look at... oh shit! Baldur throws Kratos off the dragon, but the Spartan manages to badly damage Beast's wing, bringing it down. Kratos rushes to the Bifrost, catching Baldur as he tries to open the gate to Asgard.
And when the bridge opens, the full weight of Asgard will come crashing down on you. It's over.
Is it?
In a last resort, Kratos opens a gate to Helheim, pulling all of them inside. Fuck. No, we are not supposed to cross the bridge! By the way, it's here that my game failed to load the assets and briefly started stuttering. Okay, did it load up? We land in Helheim, on the wrong side of the bridge, the one Mimir warned us about. The task set before Kratos and Atreus is to find a way out of this frozen hellhole. Vile illusions torment Atreus, reminding him of his most recent deeds. The boy regains clarity.
It wasn't me. I couldn't have done that.
Do not dwell on those thoughts. Not here.
Yeah.
We must keep moving.
Kratos, experienced in dealing with his own shameful past, tries to help his son. He understands how enticing losing yourself to rage can be. This is the part of the training Kratos probably wanted to complete before attempting the journey. But sometimes you have to let your child fail on their own. People learn from their mistakes. It's part of character growth. However difficult it is for parents, they should not deny it to their children. Speaking of which, during their climb, Kratos and Atreus find Baldur dealing with illusions of his own past.
You had no right.
I had every right. I am your mother.
You had no right, witch. I can't taste. I can't smell. I can't even feel the temperature of this room. Feasting, drinking, women. It's all gone.
You'll never
God.
have to feel pain again. Death has no power over you now. You would rather die?
Never feel again? Yes. I would rather die.
It turns out Freya is Baldur's mother. She was so scared of losing her child, so she enchanted Baldur to be immortal, at the same time making him unable to feel anything.
Trust me, in time, you will thank me. You will thank me.
Come on.
I think that's it. So we circle back to overprotective parents enforcing their own ambitions and insecurities upon their kids. Baldur never wished to be immortal. Freya, acting on her own motherly fears, condemned her son to a lifetime of suffering. Baldur grew embittered, resentful towards his mother. He hates her for what she's done to him. Her decision turned his life into a nightmare. Another accurate commentary about parents forcing their children into roles they think fit best for their kids. It can turn good, but many times it turns awful. Kratos lights the braziers on an abandoned ship. The two use it to leave Helheim, but encounter strong resistance. The flying ship becomes an interesting combat arena. Kratos has to defeat continuous waves of Hellwalkers and at the same time defend braziers as frost minions try to put the flames out. Towards the very end of their voyage in the sky, another illusion appears, this time showing Kratos killing Zeus.
Come on, we gotta go!
You saw.
There's no time, look! I have a plan! Jump!
Call that a plan.
That was your plan? You're both cracked!
Before leaving Helheim, the two find a hidden fragment of a lore shrine. It shows Tyr possessing the same gift of sight Mimir got from the giants. Mimir deciphers a plan to build a key, the key that might help them finally get to Jotunheim. At this point I realized that the plot relies heavily on MacGuffin hunting. First the Light of Alfheim, then the Chisel, then the Black Rune, now the key. The engaging plot successfully hides the fact that we are chasing one key item after another, which proves how strongly the story and especially characters carry the narrative. Kratos and Atreus approach Brok asking if he can craft the key for them.
My tool's working on something so delicate and ladylike.
Then shingle it. Pattern weld the item with scap slag. Keep the layers thin. Alternate the overlay.
Shut your mouth. Is that... Where did you...
Oh, watch the spine. Keep your wrist loose.
No, you keep your wrist loose.
The dwarf brothers finally join forces, rediscovering their mutual love for the craft. You can see how genuinely happy Atreus is for them. Brok and Sindri reunite.
Oh, quit your grinning. It's downright unsettling.
It's just nice to see you together. But
With the key we can get underneath the bridge to other realms. There the party discovers that the travel room was designed so that on the other side there is another set of doors to other realms. By following the path of Tyr, Kratos realizes the temple can be flipped upside down. Yes, the whole building. After another set of trap corridors and combat arenas, Kratos and Atreus release the chains holding the temple. Now it can be flipped.
Lift with your legs, brother.
He knows.
Just trying to be helpful.
Come on.
On the day that brute force is the answer, I'll be quite happy to be on your side, brother. And we're not dead.
Wow.
That's a plus.
So, the next step. Stray from the path after crossing the mystic doors. Let's
This
do
is
it.
where Tyr stepped beyond, and the Unity Stone protected him. Ready?
Ready.
Well, if this is it, lads, it's been an honor.
Our faith head.
This is incredible!
We find ourselves in the tower room, which raises up to reappear in Midgard. It functions like a lift, passing through every realm we've previously visited. The room transforms into a combat arena, where Kratos must defeat waves of enemies, each wave themed after a different realm. Fortunately, my thorough completionist approach to exploration left my Kratos overleveled, making these encounters quite easy. After dealing with the enemies, the tower to Jotunheim finally materializes in Midgard. There is only one MacGuffin left to find, the other eye of Mimir. You see, he needs both eyes to open a way to Jotunheim. Odin stashed the eye in the statue of Thor, the same statue that the world serpent swallowed earlier. So we need to gently ask the snake to let us retrieve it.
Is the statue lost to us?
He thinks it might still be in his stomach. And he's open to letting you row into his mouth to look inside.
The belly of the beast is just a brief level. Kratos retrieves the eye. Now the only hope is for the snake to let the party out.
So how do we get back out?
We signaled them. Hold on!
What's going on? Well, that was mildly terrifying. Maybe our presence is upsetting Jormungandr's belly.
No. Something is wrong.
Maybe he's fighting with something?
What's happening to him?
Nothing good!
He's fighting.
Hold tight and watch your balance.
The boat shifting! I'm gonna...
I have you. Boy!
I'm good.
Freya arrives to investigate the situation. Knowing about her and Baldur, Kratos and Atreus are distrustful.
We can still trust her, right?
Until we know for certain, keep a distance.
The world's serpent. What's happened here? Why are you standing so far from me? What's wrong? Something's happened.
There!
Ah, I knew.
I had a feeling that hurting the big snake would bring the two of you out in the open. Do you have any idea at all, what you have cost me?
My boy.
The stage is set for the grand clash of the gods. Freya, her hateful son Baldur, Kratos, the fugitive Greek god, and his son Atreus.
How you feel hasn't changed.
Freya tries to talk to Baldur, hoping to reconcile. Unfortunately, her son is too far gone in his twisted, vengeful ways. By the way, pay attention to the acting, to the emotions on screen, the facial expressions. This is where both the game engine and the actor's skills shine.
I rehearsed everything I ever wanted to say to you, every word, to make you understand exactly what you stole from me. But now, I realize I don't need you to understand anything. I don't need you at all.
No, back off, Kratos. This has nothing to do...
This path you walk, vengeance, you will find no peace. I know.
Kratos sees his old self in Baldur, a man so lost in his pain and suffering, so devoted to his vengeance that he'll destroy everything around him just to fulfill his goals.
Back down, Baldur.
This is the final story boss fight of the game. The stakes are high, the emotions are peaking. Freya tries to stop both men from fighting. She's still under the illusion that she can convince her son to back down. Baldur is too lost in his anger to be reasoned with. Kratos knows that.
No! You have to stop fighting!
Oh, shit! No. Freya, come on.
I said stop!
You might want to turn away, boy. This won't be pretty.
I won't let you hurt him.
No, boy.
Fine.
Stop! No! Atreus! You're bleeding. Breathe, boy. Breathe!
Not my blood.
What is that? I can feel this.
That's why she was afraid of the arrows.
I can feel everything.
Finally, all the narrative pieces fall into place. The mistletoe arrows, they were not cursed. They were the only things that could break Baldur's invulnerability. The sign Freya gave Kratos and Atreus was to hide them from Baldur, not other gods. Throughout their journey, while helping Kratos and Atreus, she was still protecting her son. The breadcrumbs left by the writers are now perfectly used in the grand finale. Baldur is ecstatic as he experiences all of the sensations again. He can feel pain, chilling winds, the snow under his feet. But he is still unable to forgive his mother and cast out his wrathful nature. The fight continues.
You will not do this!
Freya, desperate to stop the fighting gods, raises Thamur to assist her. This fight just became epic. The Baldur boss fight is long and exhausting. The checkpoint system is a godsend in this situation. Kratos must fight against both Baldur and Freya, making this encounter a poetic struggle between two parents desperately trying to protect their children.
I feel freezing!
No! Stop hurting her!
Freezing guy?
In the first phase, Baldur uses all of his abilities from the very first Stranger boss fight, including the zigzag fast attack or the triple attack combo. The main difference is that Freya joins the fight as well. Thamur slams the ground from time to time, causing a wide shockwave to sweep the battle arena. Freya continues to summon vines trying to catch either Kratos or Baldur in them. With a well-timed dodge, the vines can be used against Baldur to hold him in place for a while. However, if he dashes away and Kratos gets caught, it takes a few seconds to break free. During the first phase, Baldur channels frost powers, causing his status to turn blue. In this state, the Leviathan axe does nothing to him, forcing Kratos to switch to the Chaos Blades. Such a great way of incorporating previous mechanics. Every lesson we learned before comes in handy during the main Clash of Gods. Once in the Frost-empowered stance, Baldur unlocks new attacks. The player has to actively learn those. Whoa! Cinematic intermissions are used as a dynamic and dramatic ways of changing the arenas between combat phases. Come on, come on, come on!
Boy! Crystal!
That's gonna be the second phase. In the second phase, we are introduced to the fire-empowered Baldur. This time the Leviathan axe does the job. Fire Baldur uses new attacks, and the player must be cautious of the fire burning on the ground. They must also watch out for the jumping attack, which is perfectly telegraphed by the orange circle on the ground, making it easy to avoid if player pays attention. Freya summons minor monsters, adding another obstacle for players to overcome. Gotcha! Another cinematic intermission segment reintroduces climbing and exemplifies perfect fighting choreography. Kratos and Atreus fight in perfect unity. All their difficult experiences have led them to this moment, creating a perfect cooperative combat machine. Atreus. Come on. Last round. The third phase of the fight combines everything that came before. Baldur dynamically switches from frost to fire empowerment, requiring constant readjustments from the player. Freya still pleads with her son, but his rage and false sense of excitement and empowerment cloud his vision. Ah, you're fair now. Teamwork. Like a well-oiled machine. Kratos finally overpowers Baldur, pummeling him down to a bloody pulp. In a last resort move, Freya tries to freeze Kratos and his son. In another spectacular narrative payoff, Atreus uses his vast linguistic skills to communicate with Jormungandr, a language he learned while listening to Mimir.
Boy? Well done, boy!
With Freya and her son beaten, Kratos rushes at Baldur and tries to strangle him. Here the old Spartan becomes overcome with rage. It takes Atreus citing Kratos' own teachings to get him to stop.
Do it! Do it!
Stop! Please!
He's beaten Father. Not a threat.
Such a great writing. Unfortunately, Baldur is still blinded by hate and rage, still on his path of vengeance.
Help yourself. Can you, Mother? No matter what I do or say, you won't stop interfering in my life.
I was just trying to protect you. I've made mistakes. I know. But you're free now.
Freya deeply loves her child. She is willing to accept death at his hands.
What? No, Father!
I love you.
Why do you even care? You could have walked away.
The Sigolians here must be better than this.
Kratos kills Baldur. The cycle of hatred is broken. Or is it? Freya, mourning the loss of her child, turns hostile. Why wouldn't she? No parent should witness their child's death.
Freya. He chose this.
I will rain down every agony, every violation imaginable upon you. I will parade your cold body from every corner of every realm and feed your soul to the vilest filth in hell. That is my promise.
He saved your life.
He robbed me of everything.
Freya was ready to accept her mistakes. She was ready to die to make her son whole again. Kratos sees it differently. In Baldur, he saw his younger self, a vicious man consumed by anger and wrath, hell-bent on vengeance. He knew that killing Freya wouldn't heal Baldur's wounds, it would unleash this hopeless, broken god upon the world. Baldur was capable of destroying the lives of countless beings. Kratos knows that. He walked the same path. He tried to give Baldur a chance, but saw the same unrelenting devotion that led to destruction of Greece by the younger Kratos. That's why Kratos is almost disgusted, saying, "We must be better than this," before killing Baldur. For a Norse mythology story, this one surprisingly has deep influences of Greek tragedy. The acting in this dramatic scene is flawless. Mourning Freya forces Kratos to finally confront his past.
Boy! Listen close. I'm from a land called Sparta. I made a deal with the god that cost me my soul. I killed many who were deserving. And many who were not. I killed my father.
That was your father in hell. Is this what it is to be a god?
A curse.
Is this how it always ends? Sons killing their mothers? Their fathers?
No. We will be the gods we choose to be. Not those who have been. Who I was is not who you be. We must must be better.
With the truth revealed, Kratos makes Atreus whole. The boy finally knows his true identity and begins to see why Kratos perceives godhood as a curse. In the end, the group and Freya part ways. We don't know if she'll accept Baldur's fate or return as an enemy.
Guys, now.
In her eyes, yes. But she could never make that choice.
Back at Tyr's temple, with the help of Mimir's both eyes, we open a gateway to Jotunheim.
That's unpleasant!
Now, boy!
Leaving Mimir's head safely in the hands of the dwarves, Kratos and Atreus approach the giant's fingers, the highest peak in all the realms.
So that's the end of the journey, huh?
Near the top of the world, after a long and arduous journey, Kratos removes the bandages from his forearms, revealing his scars as a symbol of accepting his past. He is finally free.
What are you doing?
I have nothing more to hide.
In the cave leading to the summit, they discover giant statues and wall paintings revealing that the giants fled to Jotunheim to escape the gods.
Odin and Thor, ruining everything for everybody.
In a surprising twist, Atreus discovers that the hidden wall paintings depict their journey.
Wait! Father! Something's happening! It's your axe. It's smaller. Look. She's arguing with a bunch of giants. She knew giants? That's us. The first time we met the world serpent. But how? And our fight with Baldur. But that just happened. Wait. They knew everything that was going to happen. The dragon in the mountain, the stone mason, all these drawings. This is our story.
No. This is your story.
But what does it all mean?
That I was not the only parent with secrets.
You didn't know. She was a giant. I'm a giant.
Faye was a giant. Baldur pursued her under Odin's command to eradicate all giants. In order to protect her son, she paved the way for him, guiding both him and Kratos to uncover the truth behind Atreus' legacy. This was Faye's true wish. In the final panel, Kratos sees a prophecy of his own demise.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Will it be at the hands of his own son? We can't say. At the top of the world, they discover corpses of other giants, suggesting Atreus might be the last of his kind. Spreading Faye's ashes is a poetic end to the journey of self-discovery for both Atreus and Kratos, solidifying their bond. The ultimate goal was Faye's pre-planned way to forge a strong relationship between Kratos and Atreus. They needed to learn about each other, rediscover their weaknesses and overcome them together. This journey of self-discovery is never an easy one. It's full of setbacks and doubts, but for people willing to withstand the hardships, those who endure, it is well worth it.
The giants. They really are all gone. There's nothing for us here.
Come.
one final revelation awaits players at the end.
I guess there's just one thing I don't understand. My name on the wall. The giants called me... Loki?
Mind blown. The spread of face ashes marks the end of the main plot. The game allows you to continue exploring, which for me meant killing the rest of the Valkyries and fully completing both Niflheim challenges as well as Muspelheim combat encounters. The dwarves inform us that winter has begun. They fear its Fimbulwinter, the foretold prelude to the end of the world, Ragnarok. Well, we now know that the next game is called Ragnarok, so I think we started something with our journey. I will definitely play the next installment, probably in a few years. By then, my son will be closer to Atreus' age, giving me more insight into parenthood. I think I can confidently state that God of War proves video games can successfully convey powerful messages. Overprotective parents can unintentionally hurt their children. We should guide our children, help them without imposing our viewpoint. The key is communication. Talk to your kids. Don't assume things. Listen to them. Help them understand their own emotions and explain life complexities. Every relationship faces hardships. Learn to manage your emotions. Take time, sure, but never leave issues unresolved. A child's anger often stems from unmet emotional needs. So listen to them, ask questions. Learn about your child as if you were exploring dialogue options with an NPC. Spend time with your kid. As a parent, it's your responsibility to raise that little human. In the process, you will learn more about them. Lastly, don't lie or keep secrets. It will later bite you in the ass. So I guess what I want to do right now is to thank Cory Barlog and the whole Santa Monica studio for this impressive artistic masterpiece. You are the MVPs of the gaming industry. God of War received stellar reviews from the press, which normally wouldn't mean much to me. But during the 2018 Game of the Year awards ceremony, organized by our beloved Dorito Mountain Dew Bishop, Jeff Keighley, God of War won the title of Game of the Year 2018. And that has to mean something. The documentary Raising Kratos reveals the tremendous effort involved in creating this game. It showcases the numerous obstacles and challenges that were overcome. Making games is hard. There's this incredibly wholesome video of the game's director, Cory Barlog, reacting to the first professional reviews for the title. You can see how emotional it was for him, how much it meant. The art of making games unearths deeply human elements, so often overlooked in the industry. I love video games and the people involved in making them. As I always do, I'm going to check the most recent Steam reviews for the game. The goal is to gauge the general opinions of the player base. We know that the game is good, so I am particularly interested in the negative Steam reviews. What made some gamers dislike the title? At the time of making this video, God of War holds a score of 96% positive opinions out of over 92,000 user reviews. A tremendous score. So, while I was making this review, God of War Ragnarok was announced for PC with the requirement of the PSN account. Because of that, there are a lot of negative reviews bashing Sony for the PSN account mandate. While I understand the importance of discussing the requirement of various third-party accounts, it's not the topic of this video. Therefore, I'm going to ignore reviews addressing the issue. It's hard to pinpoint the main strengths of the game by glancing at the positive reviews. That's because they praise everything. I guess the graphics, the narrative, characters, music, soundwork and combat received the most acclaim. A few Steam reviewers also highlight the mature, emotional side of the main story. Some gamers enjoyed the challenging aspects of the adventure, while others appreciated the accessibility of the experience. God of War caters to a broad audience, and in that regard the developers succeeded. I also appreciate that some people valued the Norse mythology lessons conveyed in the title. My heart warmed a bit when I found few reviewers who mentioned that the puzzles are too simple. This argument might be a good segue into negative opinions. Even positive reviews sometimes point out that the gameplay, while very solid, is nothing groundbreaking. This is exactly what I thought. The gameplay is exceptionally well polished, masterfully crafted, based on existing standards. This way it creates a well-refined, accessible experience, enhancing the game's main feature, the story. I'm not gonna read that Gen Z shit. Negative opinions. A small portion of negative reviews touches on bugs and crashes. This is a very specific topic when it comes to PC versions of games. With so many hardware configurations, it's impossible to optimize the game for every combination of GPUs, CPUs, etc. A few players experienced stability issues, while I had a very smooth and pleasant experience. The main point here is that the game has surprisingly low amount of technical issue related reviews, which proves that this port is actually well optimized and very well polished. There is a sentence that keeps popping up while scrolling through negative reviews. I don't get the hype. Most arguments in the negative reviews point to the differences between 2018's God of War and the older games. The gameplay surely changed, so did the overall theme of the story. Instead of furious, blood-soaked Godslayer, we receive a story about family bonds, character growth, parenthood, and dare I say, coming to terms with emotions. It's understandable that players who loved previous energetic, brutal and gory gameplay might feel disappointed. Maybe I would have been too if I had played all of the previous games. But I like the new story, it resonates with me. It talks about themes which are so close to me, especially right now in the current moment in my life. Even if I weren't a father, I think the impeccable writing still carries the story, making it memorable regardless. The main narrative is just outstanding. The simplicity of the game is another source of negativity. I'm actually glad people noticed it despite the overwhelming praise this title received. The simple self-solving puzzles, recycling of the same boss fights, relying on chests scattered around the world, and corridor pathways limited by the invisible walls. It all got pointed out here and there in players' reviews, albeit usually in a demeaning negative tone, unfairly exaggerating simplicity of these features. Not to throw stones at anyone, but I cannot agree with the harshness. The core of exploration and many other mechanics relies on standard, tried and tested principles. Santa Monica Studio refined, polished and creatively mixed certain features with others, adding their own flavor to the end product. Yes, the basis is not groundbreaking by any means, but it doesn't mean that it's not good. Especially since 2018's God of War main strength comes from the story and characters. Achievement hunting can be an arduous task. Thankfully, God of War offers one of the most pleasant achievement completion model. There are no skippable trophies, no challenges tied to difficulty. To obtain all 37 achievements, you just need to explore the world thoroughly. This task is made easier thanks to completion sheet listing all of the available activities in each zone. The user-friendly UI and modern accessibility shine in this example. Tracking both game progression as well as achievement progression becomes pleasantly simple. God of War even allows players to explore the game after the main narrative concludes, adding another layer of freedom in tackling challenges. Simply finishing the game should get you about 50% completion. Numerous trophies are tied to story progression. Then come the achievements focusing on power progression. You'll earn trophies for obtaining runic attack gems, crafting armor for Atreus, slotting an enhancement into your gear. Another set of achievements is connected to fully upgrading your gear, such as fully upgrading Leviathan Axe or a runic attack. At the end of the game you can farm rare crafting resources, so it's not possible to lock yourself out of these achievements. Two notable challenges tied to gear involve completing two particular armor sets, the Traveler armor set and the Ancient armor set. Both must be crafted using specific rare resources. Travelers drop items specific to Traveler armor set, while Ancients drop materials for gear themed after them. There is also an achievement for killing 1000 foes. However, if you are going for full completion, you'll achieve it naturally during your escapades. Lastly, there are exploration achievements which will require a substantial amount of time and commitment. God of War rewards thorough exploration. You don't need to achieve a total 100% exploration for the whole game, but you'll come close. Some achievements task players with exploring certain zones. Then there are specific activities like freeing all the dragons or assisting every wayward spirit with their quests. Completing Sindri's and Brock's questline is also rewarded. Additionally, there are more mundane trophies like collecting all artifacts, finding every buried treasure, or killing all Odin's ravens scattered throughout the game's world. Thankfully, God of War's exploration is one of its strong points, offering meaningful rewards and resources for upgrading gear as well as enriching narrative elements. The zones aren't too extensive or overcomplicated, so even if player misses something, they can return later and quickly resume their search. Odin's ravens even make noises to help locate them. Among all the collectibles, artifacts are the most challenging, as they are easily missable and lack distinguishing features. Thankfully, you can check which ones you are missing in Atreus' book and look them up on the internet. Spoils of War, this one. If you miss one artifact, you can check the internet and you will see what you lack and where you can find it. The 3 hardest challenges in God of War are defeating the 9 Valkyries, retrieving all treasures from the center chamber in Niflheim's maze, which is another late game challenge, also requiring substantial amount of reruns to farm enough materials. Then there is also Fire and Brimstone, awarded for completing Muspelheim trials. I would say that Muspelheim is easier, however some of its trials might pose a problem to lesser geared Kratos. Each completionist journey concludes with father and son achievements, awarded for earning all trophies. The achievement hunt isn't very difficult. It's mostly time consuming. However, the game makes it worthwhile to invest additional hours with its compelling narrative elements. I approached this game from the standpoint of a father, expecting it to depict the typical struggles of a child growing up with a harsh, distant and unresponsive father. I thought God of War would teach me about relationship between a father and son. Instead, it made me look deep into myself. The main story focuses on a journey of father and son through beautiful, spectacular, yet sometimes harsh lands based on Norse mythology. However, the journey is just the background to the relationship developing between the two. God of War immerses players in its world, thanks to its camera, which stays close to the main characters and seamlessly transitions to scripted cinematic events. The soundwork and music further enhance this immersive experience. The graphics are spectacular. The gameplay mechanics, combat, exploration, collectible hunts rely on modern design principles, refined and polished to an incredibly high level. However, the game fails to introduce any meaningful, innovative gameplay elements. This leads to simplified puzzles that almost solve themselves as a means of avoiding player frustration. At the same time, the game offers depth and challenges through additional boss fights and light build-making options. The surprisingly wide roster of active skills further increases players' agency during combat. In the end, the main strength of God of War, its defining element, is its writing. The story is incredible, with a narrow pool of well-defined characters, each with distinct personalities, goals, and interactions that enrich the narrative, creating an unforgettable experience. God of War proves that video games can become artistic masterpieces, telling mature, emotional stories. Most of all, it proves that this medium can successfully convey a message. I strongly recommend this game. Hey, thank you for watching this video till the end. Yet again, it took much longer to make than I anticipated. If you liked it, then hit the thumbs up, maybe leave a comment and subscribe for more similar content in the future. If you didn't like the video, then let me know what you didn't like. I'm open for criticism. My question to you after this video is, which other games have had a noticeable impact on your life through their stories or messages? So that's all from me. Bye.